Hello? Is this thing on? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to each and every one of you. How you guys doing? I hope you all had a wonderful week. I hope your week I hope your week was better than Ubisoft's, quite frankly. BW, how you doing? Welcome to your first stream. Very happy to have you here. Very happy to be here with all of you. It's going to be, I think, quite a fun episode. There's a lot of stuff that we have to talk about, a lot of sort of meltdown stuff that's happened this week. And of course, one of the fun things is it seems like the gaming industry is finally waking up again. We sort of went through a period in the beginning of the year where almost no one wanted to do anything. Everyone was a little bit scared. And now it seems like they're finally waking up. The games industry is coming back with owls really all over the place. There's some W's here and there. I played some of the new Doom Dark Ages. I haven't played much. I think maybe like an hour and a half, just quickly last night. So nowhere near anything that I can sort of call a review yet. But it's fine. You know, it's pretty fun. Definitely not as good as people say the first, like the 2016 one was. There's a couple of things that immediately stood out to me. Even though I've never played 2016, the last time I played Doom, it was in the Duke Nukem era, right? So when Duke Nukem and Doom were sort of like the two games you could go between, that's the last time I played Doom. So you can imagine how long that was, or how many years ago that was. But one of the things that people said 2016 stood out for was the music, right? And the music is so good. It's one of the greatest musical compositions in video games. That definitely didn't felt like it. Like what I expected when it came to the music and what I ultimately got, I can't remember a single song just from my play yesterday. Not a single. If you played the songs that I would have already heard, I would not recognize them as anything Doom related. The music also, Rurikon actually mentioned this earlier today, and as soon as he said it, I was like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense. I remember feeling like something's off. The music doesn't seem to be well-timed to the game at all. Like there's times where the music is going absolutely apeshit, and then nothing's happening. And then there's times where the music isn't happening, but then there's action and I'm fighting demons. So I don't know. It feels like it's a little off. Maybe there's some changes or some patches that they have to make there. But yeah, I wasn't super happy with it, right? Ferorius, how you doing? Caleb, how you doing, sir? Morny, how you doing? And then, of course, Costum, how you doing, sir? I hope you're doing very, very well, all of you. Agonian, how you doing, sir? So, yeah, I thought the graphics was fine. I thought the gameplay is really fun. Like, oh my... Dude, the one thing that I will say for Doom is there is no game that gives you a bigger kick in the testosterone than that game. Like, holy crap. Just diving in with your shield and slamming crap with your shield is so satisfactory. So on that front, I will say the music might not be that good this time around. The graphics is nothing groundbreaking, right? It's not groundbreaking at all, but it's fun. And I feel like that's good enough, no? Rob, how you doing, sir? Excited for your South Africa video, Brenton? Hey, I hope you enjoyed it, man. That marathon is in huge trouble at the moment. We're going to be talking about marathon. Caleb, yeah, there was an indie game that's sort of similar to Doom. That's something similar. Evan, how you doing, brother? All right, so... yeah, I thought that's one of the highlights of this week, obviously. I guess I don't know if layoffs will happen yet for Marathon. It has not released yet. So there's a good chance that at least for the moment we won't run into any layoffs. I'm assuming Bungie is sort of thinking to themselves, this is a small problem. The issue, of course, is when you realize that this isn't the first time Bungie has done this. So for those of you that don't know what's happening, Bungie effectively, let me just find this for you, because I didn't plan on talking about it this early, so it's still in my notes. But let me just find this for you so that you are all aware of exactly what happened here. Oh, where is it? I know I bookmarked it. Now I can't find it. Why can I not find it? Never mind. I'll find it this way. Oh, here we go. I know who this is. Okay, I have them. 4NT1. 4NT1. Here we go. Okay, I have them. Sorry. For some reason, it is out of my bookmarks. So I'll just quickly give you guys a bit of an update here. Okay, so Marathon launches, right? Bungie is super happy. No one else is happy because Marathon looks like absolute doo-doo. It genuinely looks like one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life. The problem that I have with Marathon from the very start, it doesn't look like a game that has any soul, any sort of personality to it. It genuinely just looks like a game that was put together to basically say, guys, we have a game. They just phoned it in. I don't know. For me personally, I feel like the game still needs a lot of stuff because I don't see any reason to actually play it. But anyways, so now this comes out. This was yesterday, actually. The Marathon Alpha released recently, and its environments are covered with assets lifted from poster designs I made in 2017. This is the creator. Okay, they go on to say, Bungie is of course not obligated to hire me when making a game that draws overwhelmingly from the same design language I have refined for the last decade, but clearly my work was good enough to pillage for ideas and plaster all over their game without pay or attribution. And then they go on to say, I don't have the resources nor the energy to spare to pursue this legally, but I have lost count of the number of times a major company has deemed it easier to pay a designer to imitate or steal my work than to write me an email. And then lastly, in 10 years, I have never made a consistent income from this work, and I am tired of designers from huge companies mood boarding and parasiting my designs while I struggle to make a living. So this was the first we've heard of this accusation. Should be mentioned, it's not the first time. Bungie has had a bit of a history. All the way back in 2017, they also stole a bunch of work from an artist and just sort of went, oh, we didn't think you'd mind, and then gave him some cash as a bit of a prize after the fact. So Bungie, like, this is the one thing that I should just mention. I find it hilarious that people pretend like, I don't know if you guys remember when Bungie broke away from Activision Blizzard, there was this whole hoo-ha made, right, where they were popping champagne in the offices because they were finally getting away from the oppressive and greedy Activision and Bobby Kotick, and now they were able to really fulfill their vision for what a good company should look like. Except they went worse. Like it actually feels like Bobby Kotick was the one holding them back from really unleashing their incredible greed on the gaming industry, because everything has just gotten worse with Bungie since leaving Activision all those many years ago. But they were already then, this isn't the first time. I just want to showcase the absolute blight that is the media. So DealShockers picks up this story, and they do the following. Now, keep in mind, guys, these are the people that's supposed to be the media. They're the ones that tell us the truth, right? They're the ones that bring us the actual news that happens in the gaming. I just read you their tweet. This is what DealShock had to write about what was just said. I'm completely floored. It's not said anywhere. But then, this is my full-time job. I sell these posters online. If this seems alien to you, that's because it was never actually said. They're not obscure. Again, nothing ever said like that. A major company has deemed it easier to pay a designer to imitate or trace rather than license or commission the work. Now, if they said, we're paraphrasing, probably nothing wrong with that. The issue is there's quotations there. In other words, someone at DualShock made up a quote. I guess to make it seem a little bit more, I don't know, newsworthy or whatever. But they do respond finally and say, insane fake quote, lol, I am unemployed. Right? So they're not working. They don't make money off this. In fact, they say the exact opposite. Right? They say here, in 10 years, I have never made a consistent income from this work. In other words, they're saying literally exactly the opposite of what was actually said. Right? Like the literal opposite of what was said is being said by DualShockers. Now, DualShockers, of course, I think is sort of running a slight defense for Bungie, because what's worse? Bungie stole art from an unemployed artist that is struggling to get by, or Bungie stole art from a very rich artist. Both is crap, but one is more crap than the others, right? Yeah, you can genuinely not hate these journalists enough. But anyway, so all of this plays out. Bungie finally comes out like wildly, and they go, "Oh, yeah, we did some digging, and we found that it's a developer that is no longer with the company that did this. No name, no actual evidence. Just guys, don't worry, we already got rid of this guy." Years ago, like he wasn't even here. You know, we got rid of this guy when we left Activision. He actually worked for Activision. He was even just a contractor. We don't know who this is, right? That's basically their quote. It's just that, yeah, it's a developer that just put the files in there. We weren't aware of any of this. Now, that would be believable, right? It would be believable if this wasn't the second time that it happened. Once, sure. Right? It might happen by mistake. But when it happens a second time, and it's basically the same thing, you stole art and assets that did not belong to you, you kind of have to start going, wait, really? Like, I'm supposed to believe that this is purely by accident, and you had nothing to do with this. It wasn't like a big scheme to try and get stuff for yourself. I don't know if I buy that. Gaming questions for you to address. Let me know when you're ready. Agonian, we can go. You can ask. So distinct that it's indistinguishable from that other style. They're evolving just backwards. Sounds about right. COD has been caught plagiarizing and stealing work for years. Can't hate these journalists enough. Been following the Thomas Mahler drama last few days, and yeah, he's calling them out too. Dude, everyone's calling them out, right? Everyone is calling them out. And I think for good reason. I genuinely think that there's some companies in the gaming industry that genuinely just don't belong there. Dude, we constantly hear about how difficult it is to make games in the AAA industry because everything has to pass through multiple layers of bullshit, right? So now you come across this and suddenly you're like, wait, so Bungie doesn't have layers and layers of people who have to sign up or sign off on things? Surely there's some kind of quality assurance, right? There must be someone that checks. No? Poonsy, how you doing? Marathon Daves gave up, I feel like. Dude, if you're working for Bungie, wouldn't you just go, I don't know. Like, it's fine. Let's just steal some shit. I don't know what to do anymore. Is their bullshit just being so tangled they got lost in their own BS? At this point, just give up, man. Just out that destiny in the back. Yeah, man. Damn, that's a big ass spider. Where? Is Rose? How you doing, bro? But yeah, ultimately, I think I don't know if. Well, actually, I do kind of know. I don't think Marathon is going to do very well. I don't think Marathon is going to sell particularly well. Like I said, I think the game lacks soul, and it sort of speaks volumes when you were caught stealing art assets, just how much effort actually went into the game, right? Marathon speaks for me as a game that genuinely someone just wanted to make a looter shooter, and they wanted to do it as quickly as possible, right? And that's all you get, really. Do you think the nihilism of their situation developing is being reflected to the tone of the game? I don't know. I think it's more a case of okay, so this is going to be super speculation, okay? No, it isn't, Rose. It definitely isn't. This is going to be super speculation, and I am going to make a very big logical leap. So forgive me for that. But imagine quickly you want to make a game that doesn't offend anyone. Right? So you don't want to offend the hypersensitive left wing. You don't want to offend the sometimes hypersensitive right wing. You don't want to offend the center. That's Marathon. That's Marathon. The game is both inclusive, but also not inclusive at all. The game is both representative insofar as it doesn't represent anyone. The game is both descriptive and also nondescript insofar as no one can actually describe themselves at all in this game. It is a game where the team literally said, we don't want to make a game for the majority of gamers because then the media will be angry at us and they'll ask for more representation and diversity. If we put representation and diversity in the game, then the majority of gamers are going to be angry at us because they're sick and tired of diversity and representation. So what if we made a game where no one is represented? The characters are basically robots that have no personality, no soul. There is no real story, no real deep dive into anything. That's what Marathon feels like to me. It's a game that is built for no one because it desperately doesn't want to offend anyone, and so it cannot really appeal to anyone. Woke right. I'm fine calling it the hypersensitive right. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get hypersensitivity on all sides, right? I feel like there's no way you can stop that. You're going to get hypersensitivity on the left, hypersensitivity on the right. It is going to happen. I do think if we're talking numbers, there's far more on the left than what there are on the right. We just saw that with Kirsha and the shit that she's been through the last few days. But still, you know, they used the Ozymandias poem. Could it be describing the fall of Bungie? I would not be surprised if that's exactly what it is. At this point, we should make bingo card for every WoW game that come out. They just look the same. Oh yeah. There's probably a few delusional devs going winning with this strategy. Oh, but Evie, of course, right? The idea is if we don't offend, good art offends. Good art will always offend someone. The trick is to make it so that it offends the least amount of people. So, because you still need someone to actually play it, right? You still need someone to actually watch it. If you're making a movie, a good movie will offend some people. The real sort of talent is in figuring out how to make your movie where it offends the least amount of people. But not because you're trying to be inoffensive, but in the way you present it so that it is almost stomachable, right? I don't even think that's a word, but I think it makes the point. You want the offense that will be caused by any sort of art to be stomachable. I would say Baldur's Gate is a great example of exactly that. Baldur's Gate is offensible or offensive in all the right ways. but it's presented in such a way that the offense is almost working in the game's favor, right? It lends itself to challenge the player, but never preach to the player, right? It challenges you, but it's not preaching to you, which is kind of what you want to do with great art. You want to challenge the viewer without the viewer or the consumer feeling like they're being pressured into something or feeling like they're being taught something. They just need to think about something. And it needs to be their job to figure out what it is that they're going to be thinking about. Good art makes like 25% of the people go, well, I don't like the depiction, but I can't honestly disagree. Kind of pretty much exactly that, right? So I feel like if you try and make a game where you just don't offend anyone, Don, how you doing, bro? Where you just try and not offend anyone, you end up with a game that no one wants to play because it's not made for anyone. So that's Marathon in a nutshell and the story of Marathon. Now, I want to show you guys something else. I want to show you guys this. And I do apologize right off the bat for what I'm about to show you. It's not pretty. It really isn't pretty. I know it isn't. But, you know, I saw it, so therefore you guys have to as well. You guys know how people love minis and stuff? You know how minis are like a really fun thing for people? So, I have great news for all of you. Wizards of the Coast made some minis for Baldur's Gate 3. You know, you can buy these minis. And it's every single one of the characters of the game. I mean, if you look at these minis, they're not the greatest, right? It's not like you'll write home about these, but they're okay. You know, they're okay. They're not the worst. Well, except when people finally ordered them and received them. Now, this is, well, you can see that, right? I mean, it's the resemblance is uncanny, you know? This is Asterion, as you can see. Again, just absolutely on point with their depictions. This is Shadowheart. Now, you might be saying that this doesn't quite look like Shadowheart to me. But what you need to understand is, this is Shadowheart after she cast a Nat 1, right? She was doing a multi-attack, and she accidentally cast a Nat 1. This meant that she punched herself in the face repeatedly, over and over and over again. That's why her face kind of looks weird, right? That's a feature. But anyways, then of course you have Lego Gale. It looks like Gale, no? If Gale was in the Lego movie. You also have Karlach, who also kind of looks like she's been smacked in the face one too many times. And you have receding hairline. What's her name again? I can't even remember at this point. But, you know, she's there too. And then finally you have Withers, who I guess you could say looks like Withers. For those of you saying, well, bad paint job, this is how they arrive. They're painted by the company, right? So they're not, you don't paint them yourselves. They're painted by Wizards. This is one of the boxes that was sent to someone who bought it. Do you notice something interesting about this box? Like, take a look. I'll give you guys a second to really... What do you see missing here? No, not where it's made. Yeah. Shadowheart has no head. This is how it's shipped. This person bought the box set, effectively, and it's shipped with no head on Shadowheart, right? So this is Wizards of the Coast. This is their work, right? This is what they think about their game. Now, why this is so sad to me, and the reason this bothers me so much, is this is not the work of Larian. Larian had nothing to do with this. Remember, Larian made Baldur's Gate 3, but in terms of licensing and the minis and all this stuff, that's Wizards of the Coast. They own this IP. My issue is, who do you think gets blamed for this by normies? When a normie sees this on Amazon and thinks, wow, I want this. Let me buy this mini because I love Baldur's Gate 3, and then that arrives. It's Larian Studios that catches the blame for this. Right? And Larian had nothing to do with it. And I'm sort of now, I think, starting to realize why Sven Vinke from Larian Studios, shortly after the release of Baldur's Gate 3, said they won't be working with Wizards of the Coast again for Baldur's Gate 4. They're now going off and making their own games. I think it's because Wizards of the Coast is kind of scumbag. I mean, how do you ask people money and then send them that? Noin, how you doing? Custom, it is my theory. Remember, I said, I think that's why, right? That's sort of just, it is my theory. The reason I say that is Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the biggest games to have launched in the last decade, at least outside of like the big sports games, right? And like the Call of Duties. But in terms of normal games, Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the biggest releases. Anyone that has any business sense at all just runs it back. You made Baldur's Gate 3, your entire team is already well aware of the Baldur's Gate story, you know exactly what you want to do next, so you can just go with Baldur's Gate 4 and basically from one production just step right into the next production. What would make a studio go, we're fine, we're going to go do our own thing, right? So my speculation is that I think it's because Larian was just like, we don't want to work with Wizards of the Coast again. We're fine doing our own thing now. Because, I mean, if this is what Wizards of the Coast sends to customers for minis, I mean, if this arrived, like, look at that, bro. I would be so livid. I would be so livid if this is what I got. Ordering minis, thinking to myself, oh man, I'm going to get all these minis. It's going to be so cool. And then I have this. It's insane. Daniel, how you doing, bro? It's absolutely insane. And definitely should not happen. But yeah, I wanted to share it with you guys because I thought it was funny as hell seeing that. Yeah, just the greed of the gaming industry on full display. Isn't there a YouTube channel that fixes this kind of stuff? There probably would be. Yeah. Yeah, we'll email Larian. I don't know if Larian can do anything about it, Custom, but yeah, most people would, right? If they got these minis, they would email Larian. Because most normies, remember, you and I are very much aware of all the stuff that happens in the gaming industry. Most normies aren't. Right? So most normies don't think the way that we think. They don't know. They just remember they played Baldur's Gate 3. They're seeing all these minis and they're thinking, let's go. Who made Baldur's Gate 3? Larian. And so they're going to be the ones catching the flack for this stuff, which I just think is absolutely disgusting. But hey, you know, it is what it is. Wizards of the Coast has the IP rights, not Larian. Z-Vengeance, yeah, but who do you blame? Remember, you're a normie. You don't even know who Wizards of the Coast is. You just played Baldur's Gate 3. Don't the painter know that they had to thin their paints? I don't think the painter even knew that they were supposed to paint it until the day before. Yeah, this reminds me, you know when in school your teachers would give you a project to do? And then you would forget about the project and you would go play with your friends and just hang out. And then, like, the day before, you remember, oh, crap, I have this big project tomorrow. And then you just sort of write a bunch of bullshit because you don't have enough time. This is what that is. The day before, they walked into their office and like, does anyone have a 3D printer? And some weird dude stuck up his hand and was like, yeah, I have one. And they're like, yeah, you're going to print these minis and then just paint something. And so that's what happened. The poor secretary admin has had to deal with these emails. I'd Alt F4 seeing the attached pictures. It's good to see you on YouTube streaming again, bro. Daniel, how you doing, brother? Yeah, remember, guys, I'm here every single Friday night. Every Friday. So that we can start the weekend, on a high note. Making fun of the gaming industry before you guys go off and do whatever normal people do on the weekend. And the models itself look not very good. No, the models itself, I would argue, I mean, if you look at these models, I would argue passable. Right? Even what it was supposed to look like, right? Because this is the picture when you want to buy it where they say, this is what you will buy. Okay? But even here, I would say you're basically buying budget, It's not the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in your life, but it is something. So why not? Nothing prepares you for that. Like, nothing prepares you for that. Oh, Caleb, yeah, sadly, this is one of the downsides of YouTube membership. YouTube membership is amazing to support content creators. The sad part of YouTube membership is that it doesn't actively block ads. Don't ask me why. YouTube, in their infinite wisdom, was like, no, we won't do that. I think that's why a lot of people decide to just super chat instead, because you're still supporting the content creator, but you're not signing up monthly. That's why I release videos early for members, so you guys at least get some perks out of it, because YouTube gives you 0 perks for being a member. But I still appreciate all of the members very, very, very much. It really does help out a ton. Especially now, like, there's some weird crap happening on YouTube, dude. Metatron was tweeting about this day before yesterday. And a lot of the sort of YouTubers spoke about it as well. There's something crazy going on with the YouTube algorithm where it just, dude, it kills videos just outright. You just see your videos running into a brick wall. I say, holy crap, what's going on? So it's pretty weird. I mean, I'm not a crack shot, but even my minis look better painted. Dude, I've never painted a mini in my life, and my minis would probably look better than this, right? You're super shadow banned, man. Tekla, how do you see it? Because I have a pretty good idea that I'm shadow banned, right? I can see it in my in the analytics. I can see a video going, oh, look, it's going up. Oh, it's done now. And I'm like, whoa, 3 hours after the video launched? And then almost every single video 3 hours after it launches just drop off a cliff. And I'm like, dude, every single time? Really? That's wild. Like, how does that work? You are shadow banned, Ak. I never get your stuff unless I have the bell on. Ice Darkness, how you doing, bro? I don't know what to tell you, right? All I can ask is that you hit the like when you watch the videos and, subscribe if you haven't already. And obviously, if you can support by being a member or super chatting or anything like that, it does help out absolutely a ton. But otherwise, just enjoy the content. When the videos pop up on your feed, at least give them a click and give them a watch. That's all I can ask for. Akko, I try to watch every video of yours and I have notifications on, but I will see a video show up in my feed that's days old that I was never notified you released. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, I don't know why YouTube is doing this. I don't know what YouTube's plan is, but what can I do, right? I have to keep making content. I have to keep going, I guess. And we'll just see what happens. Because what happens will happen. Limiting the code file for shadow banning back in 2019. Who knows? I think it has something to do with... I think it does have something to do with anti-woke stuff. I don't think YouTube particularly likes the anti-woke, right? And so I don't necessarily think it's a full-on shadow ban. I think it's more a case of they'll deprioritize the videos slightly, right? Because I still have videos that will, after a couple of days, start kicking through. But it is sort of weird how it works, because there's videos where I go, this video should do really well. And then it just runs into a wall and it's just like, never mind. And then there's sort of videos where it'll break through, but you can see it's sort of slow. Okay, what helps you more? Twitch subs or YouTube memberships? APOC, wherever you wish to subscribe, wherever you wish to give money, I'm grateful, right? I don't mind really. I genuinely don't care. So whatever you feel like doing, I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Super chats would probably be the best, right? If people super chat, because that way you're not tied into a subscription that you might forget about. And then on the month that you need that money the most, it goes off of your account. So that's why I normally prefer super chats, because at least then you're only giving when you want to give, and not because it's happened before where someone messages me and they're like, dude, I was just charged and I can't afford to give you this money now. And it's on YouTube, so I can't do crap, right? I can't refund on YouTube. If you do it on Patreon, that's a different story. I can refund you on Patreon, but on YouTube, I have no power. So you're going to have to deal with YouTube customer service, and I can tell you, that's not fun. Their customer service isn't great. On Heavy Rate Zero, it's... Wait, it is below $10 though, and I can still go lower. What's below $10? Hassan Poker roaming free as usual. La Film Matrix, how you doing? Yeah, I think YouTube does not recommend anti-woke channels to new people. I mean, it might be. It might be, right? It is what it is. We're going to be talking about Ubisoft. Do you guys... Well, I made a video on Ubisoft already. Do you want to really talk about it? Is it something that you guys really care about? Do you just want to laugh a little at Ubisoft? Because I'm happy to laugh at Ubisoft. I am all in. If we're going to make fun of Ubisoft, I say let's do it. Right? All right, so let's laugh at Ubisoft a little. So Ubisoft share price, for those of you that did not know, Ubisoft share price is in the gutter. Hey, just look at that. Just look at that. Feast your eyes, ladies and gentlemen. You might be saying to yourself, wait, that's up 2%. You'd be wrong though. It's only up today. It's kind of come back up. If you go over 5 days, it's down really, really hard. Over 1 month, it is slightly up, but that's only because it had a massive dip about a month ago on the 10th of April. And now it's sort of hovering around here as well, which I think is going to happen. If you look at this chart over here, they started to fall down. This was the first time we heard that they're starting to struggle and they're breaking part of their company off into another subsidiary. And you'll see it rode down all the way to like 880. Then it started to bounce back a little to 930. And then it dumped back down to 8. I think we're going to see something similar here. If we go to like the 1-day chart, I think we're going to see something similar where it might come up a little bit, but I think it is ultimately going to end further and further down. Because here's the problem with Ubisoft's current earnings call. Going through the earnings call, there's a number of very interesting things. The first thing, Ubisoft is absolutely burning cash at the moment because all of their games that was supposed to release have been postponed. Now, I can only speculate as to why that is, but if I'm going to be a betting man, I would argue Ubisoft is trying to get rid of a bunch of political stuff in their games because they just had 2 games where they learned the very hard way it doesn't work, right? In Star Wars Outlaws, they just found out, yeah, okay, no one wants to play that shit. And now also in Assassin's Creed Shadows, they found out, okay, no one cares about our political stuff. So the fact that they're pushing more of their games, like all of their games, by the way, are getting pushed back. They sort of predict that they might break even at the end of next year, but then also say that they'll only start making money at the end of the year after that. So they're only really going to be profitable in 2 years' time. The funny part of that is if you actually go into it, they said that last year. and they're not up. Just for those of you that might have wondered, they're not up. In fact, they're down on everything. Like all of their revenue, everything is down by between 10 and 20%. Even Guillemot, Yves Guillemot's son is coming back to Ubisoft, Charlie Guillemot, or whatever, because apparently he's going to save the company. I don't think so, but they're at least suggesting that might happen. Now, investors did say they have strong hopes for the years beyond, but investors will believe in free cash flow when it is in front of them. Now, you have Morningstar analysts that said, we expected Assassin's Creed Shadows to turn around Ubisoft's financial performances. This is what you need to know about analysts in the gaming industry. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Did any of you, chat, expect Assassin's Creed Shadows to turn Ubisoft's fortunes around? Who of you saw the cinematic of Assassin's Creed Shadows and thought to yourselves, this is going to be the greatest seller in the history of the world? I'm not even an analyst. And I could tell you that game was going to fucking tank, right? Like, I don't have to be an analyst to tell you this is not going to work, brother. This is not going to work. You guys are running headfirst into a wall here. Frozen Solid, how you doing? Remember, it was sold when the trap beat started. Ban them if someone says yes, bad. So fundamentally, it's really bad. Really, really bad for Ubisoft. And I don't see a way out, quite frankly. I think Ubisoft currently stuck between a rock and a very hard place. It's a company that's completely over-leveraged. They have over 1.4 billion euro in debt. I don't know why people think I say it wrong. Billion? I don't know. People think I say billion weird. But anyways, over 1.4 billion euros in debt. They have over 17,000 employees. 17,000. That is disgusting numbers of employees, right? Working for the studio. They have studios all over the world. Every single one of those buildings costs a lot of money to maintain. Ubisoft is over leveraged. They simply cannot. Even their new studio that they've just started, with the whole plan being that Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six, I think it is, will be produced by this new studio or this new subsidiary. They moved 3,000 people over to this new subsidiary. So even there, where Ubisoft finally had the opportunity to cut away the fluff, cut away the nonsense, and just get back to making good video games, they didn't do that. Ubisoft is a company that is run by a moron. Guillemot is dumb as a bag of rocks. Because if it was me, and I was doing the whole subsidiary scaly nonsense, I would have only brought over like 300, maybe 400 devs for all three of those games. And I would have been like, boys, we're going to start embracing technology, embracing new engines, and you're going to learn how to make games with far fewer people. But instead, no, we need 3,000 people for the next Assassin's Creed. Now let's run some numbers, shall we, chat? We're told that the gaming industry has to increase their prices for games because they're not making money. So I thought to myself, okay, let's do a nice math experiment here. Assassin's Creed Shadows cost between $250 and $400 million to produce. That's not marketing, that's just the production of the game. Let's be conservative and say that it cost them 300 mil to make that game. Now, in gaming, you need to make 3 times more than what the game cost in order to call a game successful. Why? Because more games fail than what comes out, right? So you have a bunch of games as a game studio that will never actually be released. So every game has to make more than what it cost, plus then more to sort of fund the games that will just never actually be released because they're canceled before they actually come to market. So that's sort of, in Hollywood, it's the same. Movies also have to make about 3 times more than what it costs to produce the movie. So, in other words, Ubisoft, in order to call their business successful, needs to make $900 million on Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, remember, the games industry says we have to increase costs because, games have gotten too expensive to make, inflation and all that. Now, we don't have the actual numbers for how many copies was sold in Assassin's Creed Shadows. I know people have shown a screenshot from Reddit where someone sort of leaks the actual numbers. I find those numbers highly suspect, so I don't believe that. The only thing we know is that there's about 3 million players that played the game, and there's analysts that suggest that there might be 4.5 million in the next year that actually plays the game. Buying, that's a different story. But let's quickly say, just for interest's sake, let's say Ubisoft charges $70 for their game and they get 100% of it. 100% of the money. Remember, they don't. 30% goes to Steam. But let's imagine that Steam said to Ubisoft, look, we already make so much money, you guys can get 100% of what you need. At $70, and let's be I'm going to be so nice to Ubisoft, I'm going to say that 3 million players bought Assassin's Creed Shadows. That's 240 mil. They're still losing money at $70. Let's increase it to $80. No, I'm lying. That's 210 mil. Excuse me. 210 mil. Let's increase it to $80. Now we're at 240 mil. You're still losing money. Let's go to 90. 270 mil. You just started. If the game only cost 250 mil, you've just made a profit of 20 mil. We're at $90 for Assassin's Creed Shadows. At 3 million copies sold. Okay? So that's not enough. You can't run a business that way. So let's say they charge $100. That's 300 mil. Still not enough. Remember, they have to make 900 mil. So for Ubisoft, at the current sales rate of 3 million copies sold, we're being kind, they would have to charge $300 per game in order to actually make back the money that they spent on the game. Now, I don't know about you guys. Maybe some of you are super rich. How many of you would buy a game for $300? Domago, how you doing, bro? Vladline, how you doing? Be selling the high seas at that price? Hey, Park, at $100, most people would be selling the high seas, right? The lesser evil, how you doing, sir? The fact of the matter is that as the price increases, you're going to get fewer and fewer copies sold. What the gaming industry doesn't understand, the problem isn't the price of games. The problem is the budget. We have overpriced games in the games industry. The problem is inflation, but it's not economic inflation, it's budgetary inflation. Budgets have gotten so large that it is impossible to sell your way into success. This is why so many of these studios have to sell shit on the store in the game, even in single player games now, to try and figure out how to make some of their money back. But of course, you kind of still want the actual sales price to cover the production of the game so that the cash shop can get you to the 3 bits more, right? I was going to say $200 is a meme, but the real price being $300 to break even is insane. Daniel, that's if 3 million people actually buy the game, right? Because that's what the budget is. Now, remember, that's the budget without the marketing budget. If you do the research and you actually look across the board of multiple earnings calls, what companies usually spend in budget, they spend in marketing. So if they spend 250 mil on the production of the game, they'll spend about 250 mil on the marketing of the game. So now we're at $500 million. That means you have to make $1.5 million. So at 3 million people buying it, you have to charge $500 per game, right? And that's if everyone buys it. So there's no way that you can increase the price of your games to actually make back the money that you're spending on the games. Now, why is that happening? Why is it that so many of these studios are going apeshit on these budgets? What is the point? What is the purpose? What is actually driving it? Yeah, it's a lot of bloat, but why is there bloat? Technically, yeah, Sun Grand Studios could shut the hell up. Hey, Buck, no. And here is where I think a lot of you are going to be super angry with me. I think a lot of you are going to be super, super angry with me after this, but let me just quickly do it. I want to ask you guys something. Stan, how you doing, brother? All right. Would you guys say that this trailer looks phenomenal? Now, remember, this isn't a trailer, really. This is in-game footage. They made some gameplay footage as well as some in-game cinematics. So this is technically what it's going to look like in the game. Look at the sweat. Right? Look at the sweat. Look at the sweat glistening off his body. Look at the muscles. Every single muscle moving exactly the way that you would want to, sort of what you would expect normal life, real life stuff to happen, right? There's one specific moment that I'll show you guys. Caleb, what do you want me to wait for? I'm going to show you guys in a second what I'm talking about and why this is just... How many people actually use first-person drive? I don't think anyone does, though. Like, that would be crazy. So people actually highlighted this. Can you guys see the beer? Oh, it looks very good. The trailer looks amazing. And it's not really a trailer because it's a combination. It's all in-game footage, but it's taken from in-game cutscenes as well as gameplay. So you're getting sort of a mixture of all. Look at the fizz in the beer. You can physically see the fizz. You can see the bubbles moving in the beer. There's another scene that does the same thing. Now I ask you a question. I'm taking nothing away from the game, right? It looks phenomenal. But I ask you a question. How much time are you going to spend in the game deriving pleasure from that? Like, how many hours worth of pleasure is that going to give you? 1 second. A streamer will point it out. I'll derive pleasure from the scene that follows. That's fair, but do you think the accumulation of small details makes something great? APOC, to do this costs a shit ton of money. So we now know that the actual budget for GTA 6 is... where is it? Here we go. The actual budget for GTA 6 is $1 billion. 8 years of production, $1 billion. This makes it officially the most expensive game in the history of gaming. And one of the reasons for that is this. It's the minute attentions to detail. Now, Rockstar has the ability to do that, right? Because they know this game is going to make billions back, because GTA 5 made $1 billion a year. And so they don't really mind spending that much money, and they have a history of trying to push things further and further. But I always come back to the same question that Gabe Newell asks developers that work for Valve. Where's the fun? Does this make the game more fun? Because if it doesn't make the game more fun, then what's the point of us investing in it? I mean, I get that sometimes you just want to invest stuff because why not? But I do think the problem is, now remember, we are talking about Ubisoft and budgets. And Rockstar manages to do it better than almost anyone else, but this is why budgets have completely gotten out of control. Because every gaming studio is focusing on things that don't matter, instead of focusing on the things that do. They want to get the minute little bubbles in the beer just right. Because of what? I'll tell you guys another little secret. You guys know in Red Dead Redemption 2, the balls of the horse would literally contract in the snow. Like, if the horse was in the snow, the balls would actually go up and tiny. I never even noticed it. It wasn't until after I finished the game that I saw a tweet from someone going, "Oh, damn, the attention to detail is insane." And I was like, oh, damn, I never looked at my horse's cock. Oops, I guess I should have focused, because they clearly spent a lot of time developing that. It's stuff that don't matter, right? Like, no one cares about this. Why is this in the game? And the answer is, we've lost the plot. Every single game studio thinks that their games will just sell because their games have always sold. And what's started to happen, and this really is something that was started by Sony. Sony started this endless hunt for ultra realistic graphics, where the game has to be just the most beautiful game in the history of the world ever. And every other AAA studio jumped on board. They were like, let's go. We want to make the most beautiful game ever. And I keep coming back to this. Is it fun, though? Now, of course, with Rockstar, that's not to say that the game won't be great. I'm sure it will be. I'm sure the gameplay would be great. But think how much more gameplay there could have been in the game if someone wasn't spending days, if not weeks, getting the exact physics and fizzies and bubbles just right on the beer. Imagine if instead they were focusing on making more gameplay, on making more scenarios. How much more would there have been in the game? Imagine if game studios stopped giving a crap about ray tracing. Oh, wow, we're going to go down the list of things that I hate, right? I hate ray tracing. And if you like ray tracing, I'm sorry, but I hate it. You want to know why I hate it? I don't care. Oh, I can see the shadows of things that I'm not even looking at. Why does that matter? Why do I need to see the shadows of things that I'm not looking at? I will spend a grand total of no minutes actually appreciating the shadows of things that I'm not looking at. Instead, I can see the shadows of the things I'm not looking at in the water at a massive performance hit. Right? Like, the game is performing worse so that I can see bullshit shadows. The only thing I require from shadows is that they don't look blocky. That's it. Don't look blocky, and we're good to go. Right? That's it. Soft shadows, just passing, and I'm happy. I don't need to see the lights from the skyscraper in the puddle on the floor. I'm not looking at the puddle in the floor. I'm looking at whoever to shoot next. It feels like unnecessary bullshit that's added to games that cost extra money for no purpose or reason whatsoever outside of being able to say, oh, look, we have fizzy beer. I say, oh, well, I wasn't going to spend enough time caring about the fizz in the beer to appreciate the amount of money you spent on this nonsense. You want to know why budgets are as expensive as they are? Because everyone is trying to make fizzy beer. That's just the short and the long of it. Just upgrade your PC to play our slop. We're talking about ballooning budgets. Yep. Ray tracing just makes my game boot up screen take longer, processing more shaders. I mean, it looks cool, but I'm not going to hyper analyze ball contracting. Metalhead, how you doing, bro? Ray tracing is just a marketing gimmick. Yeah. Metalhead, you're not wrong. It's a marketing gimmick, and I'll be honest with you, it makes games look worse. In my opinion, ray tracing doesn't make games look better. The problem that I've had with ray tracing, for example, in Cyberpunk, it makes the whole game glossy. Like everything shines. I don't want to play a game where everything shines. I just want to play a game. Like, I don't like this. These are details you get the time to appreciate if the game is actually good and fun. But that's the whole point, right? It's details that you can only really appreciate when the game is good and fun. The problem for a lot of companies is they spend so much time on these details that they completely forget to make the game good and fun. That's why skin looks metallic, okay? Developers think all these details make your mind perceive the world more alive than it being just a 3D collection of models on a flat screen at the cost of gameplay being left simple and prototyped. They didn't feed Yasuke fried chicken. No, they did not, Flatline. Daniel, I actually agree with you. In my opinion, art style far more important than graphics. And I think Expedition 33 is the perfect example of that. You don't need phenomenal, world-class, realistic graphics. You just need a game where the graphics matches the setting. If you nail that, it's brilliant. Beautiful. Everything you want from a game. Which is kind of annoying that we're in this world where that's not what happens. It's a cool detail, but was it worth $10 million? Well, I mean, which game are you talking about? Like, I don't know of any game that makes any of this for 10 million. You got to bump up those numbers, bro. Can't wait to keep playing it next weekend. I'm still avoiding E33 streams because I don't want spoilers. Don't worry, Rob. I'm not spoiling anything for you. In fact, that's why AI has become so identifiable. It has a distinct style now. True. Art style over realism. I agree with that. Gypsy, the Tech Kitty, how you doing? Compare Doom Eternal versus Doom the Dark Ages. Both games look great. No reason Doom the Dark Ages requires the 2060. Gypsy, ray tracing. It's all about the ray tracing. Because we have to trace the rays. Because someone out there somewhere cares about that bullshit. I'm just asking a hypothetical question. Ray tracing isn't about visuals. It's offload lighting, rasterization to our GP to save development time. Development time saved for what? I have no problem, right? If you want to save development time, by all means, save the development time. But what are you saving it for? Because you're not making better games, right? Like, the games aren't getting significantly better as a result of them saving time or money. It's the same bullshit game, just it looks worse and it runs worse. Ray tracing has also made devs lazier to spend more time getting paid to do F all at home. Oh, we're going to be talking about at home. But before we do that, I have another story lined up for you guys. Now, you might be asking yourself, but Akko, why is this? This isn't about gaming. And you are absolutely right. It isn't about gaming, right? But it's in line. Like, you'll see, I chose purposefully a nice theme for us this evening. We just spoke about budgets completely going out of control. A big part of that, of course, is because most of these game studios are completely oversaturated with developers. Microsoft just announced that they're laying off 6,000 people. Care to guess why? Come on, chat. Why do you think 6,000 people at Microsoft just lost their jobs? No, not the gaming division. This is Microsoft proper. They were ray traced. AI. 6,000 people just had their jobs replaced with AI. They're no longer necessary. Now, this, as I said, not directly related to gaming, but definitely related to the future of gaming. Because this is going to happen in the gaming industry very, very soon. We're going to see it. Because even in the gaming industry, we're going to see AI take over a lot of the work that normal people would have been doing in the past. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not against AI. In fact, I think AI is great. I use AI every single day of my life. I use AI to do research. So if I'm making a video for you guys, I will use it as an advanced search engine to get me studies and all the rest of it. We're actually going to be doing some AI deep diving in a second with the sort of the story that we're on now. It's very good at sort of playing with to figure out what the right title and description is going to be for videos. Because what I'll do is I'll take the script from the video that I made. I don't script them, but in DaVinci Resolve, I can transcribe my video and it tells me, it gives me a script. I'll take that, I'll feed it into ChatGPT, and then I'll say, give me a title and a thumbnail, a title and a description for this video. That's clickable and SEO friendly and all the rest of it. So then it'll give me that. And then I can sort of go, okay, this is the title that I made. How does my title compare to your title? And then I'll sort of play off. I never use their title or their description directly, but I use it to get ideas because it doesn't come up with great titles, just to point that out. The titles that it comes up with is either so clickbait that it takes you back to 2010, or it's just gibberish because it just includes a bunch of terms. It doesn't actually give you a proper cool title that people will click on, but it's nice at giving ideas, sort of going, well, that's a cool title, but let's shorten it this way. And I go, oh, I never thought of that shortening. What if I did this? So it has its place. AI is good for those things. Will it replace YouTubers? Probably not, but it's good for some things. And I think even in the gaming industry, AI has a place. In the workplace, AI has a place. It's a great assistant. Will a lot of game studios use AI in places where it doesn't need to be? Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can almost guarantee you that Yves Guillemot and Andrew Wilson cannot wait to tell all of their artists, you guys can go home now. We have AI to do all of our art. I don't know if you guys even saw this. Oh, I need to show this to you. We never covered this, but I did react to it during podcast, one of the podcasts. Is it this one? Just make sure. I don't want to give you guys the wrong one. Is it this one? Come on. No, it's not this one. Oh, which one is it again? Da, 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 da. There was a trailer for this game specifically. Rurikon showed it to me. Let me show you what I'm looking at. Can I have to go to Rurikon's messaging? Hold up. Let me just go to Rurikon. Because he linked me the trailer. This was a while ago, though. Is it? No, it's not this one. I need to show you guys this. Because it's ridiculous. Japan, Dreamhaven, Japan, Monster Hunter. I think it's this one. Is it this one? No, come on. Where's this? Where is this trailer? Is it this one? Oh, they removed the video. Bastards removed the video. But it was it was the new Ark Survival Evolved cinematic, right? That they released, and it was AI. Like, look at this. That was in the trailer. That's a screenshot from the trailer. No wonder I couldn't find it. So Ark, the people behind Ark, literally went, wait, let's just get AI to make our trailer for us. Why would we need to pay actual developers to make a cinematic if we can just get AI to do it? This is what we have to look forward to in the gaming industry. This is what people like Andrew Wilson and the like, this is exactly what they're going to be doing. Yeah, the video isn't available anymore. But yeah, so I'm definitely convinced that AI will replace a lot of developers in the gaming industry. Some good, some not so good. Ark is half a terabyte of a game, so I think AI might be an improvement. It's only business excuse again. Of course, Ark Aqua AI, they get lazy AF. Yep. We can talk about Alyssa Mercante after this, what we're talking about now. I'd be happy to talk to you guys about Alyssa Mercante, because obviously that's a pretty big story. But okay, so going from big budgets, remember that's still what we're talking about now. Microsoft laying off 3% of their workforce. Over 6,000 people just got laid off by Microsoft. We go into this. Now, all of this is still part of the same theme, boys. We're still on the same theme. We're still talking about the exact same thing. EA pushes full return to office, effectively ending remote hiring. And if you actually go through it, in an email sent to employees today, viewed by IGN, CEO Andrew Wilson said that in-person work results in a kinetic energy that fuels creativity, innovation, and connection, often resulting in unexpected breakthroughs that lead to incredible experiences for our players. We went on to broadly outline that hybrid work would now be defined as a minimum of 3 days a week in your local office, and that off-site local roles would be gradually phased out. And then Laura Meal, who is the president of EA Entertainment, said the following: "These changes will not take effect immediately. Employees should continue working as directed by your business unit until further notice. Work model transitions will come with a minimum 12-week notice period before any changes are implemented. The timing will vary by location. Hybrid work will mean working from your local office at least 3 days per week. This aligns with what's outlined in Andrew's EA action. We are introducing a new 30-mile, 48-kilometer radius around EA locations, What this means, employees who live within 30 miles, 48 kilometers of an EA location will transition to a hybrid work model. Employees who live outside the 30-mile, 48-kilometer radius will be considered remote unless their role is designated as on-site or hybrid. That's just them sort of corporate speak. They're going to tell them you either come in or you look for another job. And then we will also sunset the off-site local work model depending on your location. This transition may take 3 to 24 months. And then finally, they spoke to a bunch of sources in the studio that said several sources within EA speaking to IGN anonymously said that employees were upset and confused. Of course they were. With some employees sharing hours-long commutes they were now being expected to make or expressing concerns regarding childcare or personal medical conditions that had benefited from remote work. Others classified as remote and outside the 30-mile range expressed concern for what would happen to their roles if they were unwilling or unable to move closer to an office long-term. Two sources explained to IGN that per the breakdown sent by Meal, existing remote workers would have their exemptions to return to office sunset sometime in the next 3 to 24 months. Now, before we go, what do you guys think of this? Do you guys think it's good, bad? What do you think? Accelerating measures to fall in line or be replaced with someone willing to do the work. Yeah, pretty much, right? Depends on the job and the quality of output gotten. What's so bad? The office is air conditioned now? Yeah. I think one of the first things that you need to recognize with this is a very nice way for EA to get rid of a lot of their employees. And one of the things that I love about it is it's a very nice way to get rid of employees that don't actually love making video games. So employees who don't really give a shit about gaming, and they're basically just there because it's a nice paycheck, they get to sit at home all day and write tweets for Twitter, they're going to quit, right? They're not going to stay. However, people who really love making video games, they'll move closer. Think about this, right? If you find your dream job, wouldn't you move halfway across the world to be able to do your dream job? Of course you would. It's your dream job. It's what you've dreamt about your entire life. So you'll move, right? You'll find a way to live closer so that you can go into the office every single day. The people who are just there because this was something to study and now it's something to do, I'm assuming they will leave. So hopefully by the end, we end up with far fewer bad developers and far more good developers. You're still going to have some bad developers, but hopefully, right? If you're an exceptional employee who actually worked at home, I think should be able to work at home, but I'm assuming like 1% of people are like that. So Caleb, I did the work and I actually did some surface level research on this. Now, I've read some of these studies in some respect, but not detail, because I didn't have a lot of time. This came out yesterday. I was doing a bunch of other work, so I only had today, so I haven't read too deep into this. But when asking Grok to break down the actual study, so what I asked is, can you provide me with studies that show the positives and negatives of work from home versus in the office? Right, so I tried to phrase my question. I always try and do this with Grok and with ChatGPT. I try and ask them questions that is as unbiased as possible. Just provide me with the studies. So here's the positives, right? A Stanford study of 16,000 call center employees at C-Trip, a Chinese travel agency, found a 13% productivity increase for work from home employees, attributed to a quieter environment, fewer breaks, and less sick leave. Employees made more calls per minute and worked more minutes per shift. A 2021 study by Connect Solutions reported that 77% of remote workers showed increased productivity with 30% completing more work in less time, and 24% doing more work in the same time. Then you have work from home is often more productive for individual, repetitive, or creative tasks due to fewer interruptions. A 2023 Owl Labs report noted that remote workers find it easier to focus on independent tasks and creative thinking. So you have some studies that show improved work-life balance, some studies that show reduced stress and health benefits, cost savings and flexibility, wider talent pool and retention. Then you go to the negative studies. And here you find a 2023 study of over 10,000 IT professionals at an Indian tech company found an 8 to 19% productivity drop during work from home, primarily due to increased communication costs. Employees spent more time in meetings and less on uninterrupted work, with reduced networking and one-on-one supervisor meetings. A 2021 Forbes study noted that work from home is less effective for complex, urgent, or collaborative tasks requiring problem-solving or co-creation, as virtual communication lacks the spontaneity of in-person interaction. This is very important. So going through all of this, you find work from home works really well for some jobs, but really bad for others. Like really bad for others. And specifically, when we're talking about the gaming industry, work from home is terrible for the gaming industry. You see, because in the gaming industry, it is collaborative work. So it's work where you and a bunch of other people are working together to make the same thing. And what they actually find, what a lot of these studies show, creativity is oftentimes sparked by almost impromptu meetings. So they find that people will go down to the cafeteria, and in the cafeteria, they might sit down and talk to some of their fellow developers. And in that communicate, they'll suddenly realize, oh, wait, I can do that. Right? Or if you're struggling with something, you can just pop down to someone's office quickly and just, pop in and go, hey, I've been struggling with this thing. Can you just, what do I need to do? And they can quickly help you. Whereas if you work from home, making an official Zoom call is official, right? It's an actual thing. It's now, it's a much more formal thing. So people are far less likely to make those formal Zoom calls. And also, there's some studies that actually showed Zoom calls tend to take longer than just a normal impromptu meeting. So fundamentally, I think EA is one of the last companies or studios that still allowed work from home, and even they are now unwinding it. Because across the board, the studies prove that gaming companies specifically, work from home doesn't really work well in gaming companies. Maybe in things like community managers, they could probably work from home and it would be mostly fine. Maybe QA testers can kind of work from home and it would probably be fine. But for actual developers, that's just not going to work, right? Basically, we need to make all the grunt workers hang out in a Discord server regularly. The last one, hard to follow for most Western companies. Remember the days of 2022 when all the journalists were like, work from home is the future of work? Oh, Daniel, yeah. I remember the studies that also came out of that. Microsoft was one of the big ones that had all of these studies that proved how amazing work from home is. And like I said, the studies do show that for some jobs, work from home is fine, right? For some jobs, there's nothing wrong with work from home, but there are a bunch of jobs where work from home really doesn't work. So EA basically unwinding all of their work from home, I have a feeling is going to lead to a lot of developers leaving EA. Maybe leaving the gaming industry in general, because if you actually go through this, you'll see that Rockstar, Ubisoft, Activision, Blizzard, they've all gone away from the work from home model. They've all called their developers back home or back to the office. I design engineer plans for an ISP. My team consists of 3 people from different corners of the country. Work from home works for us. Agree that for some jobs, it will not work as well. Oh, Gypsy the Tech Kitty, I have friends as well who work from home. I have brothers who work from home. What I've heard mostly from people who, especially in leadership positions, some workers are great at work from home because they have internal motivation. So you don't need to look over their shoulder. They'll get the job done. But some workers are terrible at it. Like if there's not someone basically cracking the whip 100% of the time, the work just doesn't get done. You sort of constantly have to check up on them and be like, hey, is this done? 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 Because if you don't, they just sort of give up or they take weeks to actually finish stuff. So yeah, I think all round it's going to be good. I just don't think the gaming industry realizes yet how bad their budget situation is. All right, so what is this story about Alyssa Mercante? What did Mercante do now? I know she made a video, and in that video, she basically tried to get a bunch of people cancelled, and apparently that backfired badly. No, the lawsuit is still going. But she was trying to make a video canceling a bunch of people. And that video did not go the way that she had planned, I think. Oh, she made another video, actually. Do you guys want to watch the new video? And here she is. She's going to watch the video now, 27 minutes ago on Twitch. Dude, I just don't understand why anyone would like, why are people gooning over this bloody woman? Miracles, how you doing, bro? Actually, we can't watch this video. I just realized we can't watch this video. Because on YouTube, she can absolutely copyright strike that. Oh, dude, there's people gooning over her. Absolutely. But she made changes to the video, she says. And she's saying that YouTube is complicit in her harassment and the harassment of others. What we will do, though, is we will watch this video on Twitch next week. We will definitely be watching this video on Twitch next week. Last of Us 2, she's vaguely feminine enough for a gooner. Did you get banned from Twitch, Echo? Hey, Buck, no. Why? Oh, miracles. That's good. Oh, Apoc, we're streaming there during the week. So I was live just yesterday on Twitch. It's just, I've split the streaming now. So I go live on Twitch during the week, and here we're live just on YouTube. That way it's no mixing and no weird stuff going on. Just listen, who is goon over who? Fern, what do you mean? What rape threat? Man, the problem with this kind of stuff is everyone gets this, right? This isn't new. This isn't something strange. It happens to everyone, right? If you're a content creator, if you're trying to make content, you're going to get harassment. There's literally nothing you can do about it, right? You're going to get harassment. There's nothing you can do. To argue that somehow that harassment is targeted and because of someone else, this is what I hate about modern journalists. They want the freedom to harass everyone, but they refuse to take responsibility when the harassment comes back at them. When people clap back, how dare you? I should be free to write all the articles I want about you and about you gamers and about your movement. You are not allowed to come after me for that. So in other words, people like Alyssa Marcante wants nothing more than to have absolute freedom from from the consequences of her own actions. She will not deal with consequences. This is one of the biggest problems, I would argue, in the gaming industry or in the world. We're raising a bunch of young people or specifically young girls, that have no ability to take responsibility for anything. The second responsibility comes a knocking, they completely shut down. Oh, TMB. Brother, that is insane
TMB
money. $69.99 Canadian dollars. Nice, bro. I love that. I love that. How you doing, brother? Thank you so much for the dono, for the super chat. I really appreciate you, sir. I haven't seen you in a while, man. How's your life been? Hey, it's $69.99. $69.69. Or 69 for 20. You can't do 420, right? That's not going to work. Actually, it's 69.99. I still appreciate the shit out of you, TMB. Thank you so much for that super chat, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're far too kind. They actually quite surprised. I did not expect that, so really appreciate that. Need more goon material? Fair, and go on Pornhub, man. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Working hard, garden going well, community work. Nice, TMB. Nice. And how's I know you have some health stuff going on. I don't want to, speak out of turn. But how's that stuff going? You doing well? Have daughters? I'm doing my best not to let them turn into modernized women. Apoc, it's all about consequences of actions, right? You have to teach your children that actions have consequences. Now, when I was growing up, that was easily done, right? My ass would be on fire. That would be the consequences of my actions, right? So when my actions warranted it, I would be beaten. And for some things, I've absolutely deserved it. Well, actually, for all things. My dad wasn't quick on the trigger, but every single time I got spanked, it was for good reason. You know, I deserved it. Plus, I wasn't really the kind of child that you could just talk to. If you just tried to talk to me, I would not listen. So a good spanking went a long way in my house. You're a boy, though. I have a son as well, and he definitely gets different treatment compared to my daughters. Oh, yeah. Well, of course. I don't know if you can really... I'm sure there are parents who spank their daughters, but I think daughters, because they're more emotional, you could probably get a lot further with sort of appealing to their emotional side and their empathy side than you would with boys. You know, if you just told a boy, wow, doing that really made me sad. If my dad said that to me, I'd be like, bro, I don't give a shit. Let's go. I'm not getting punished. Like, I'm just making you a little sad. Let's go. Right? It's all good. I can deal with you being a little sad, you know, but whenever my dad said, let's go to your room, that's when I knew, shit, all right, this is it. I need to start listening now. I had my dark night. I get the joke now. Yo, I'm the greatest and poor me. Same. I laughed my ass off when I realized the joke. TMB, wait, what joke? Thanks for about. Let's go. Not that kind. Half limitations are changing. Can't be pissed. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. Wait, is that good news or bad news, TMB? Because it sounds like you can't be angry, can't be pissed. Sounds like it might be reasonably good news. I hope it's good news. right? No one likes to deal with health stuff. It's never fun, right? So I'll continue to pray for you, TMB. I genuinely hope that stuff gets sorted out. It's not fun, right? It's not fun at all. I feel like crap, but I don't care. Oh, man. I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, stuff happens, you know? Life happens fast. I won't talk about that. Never mind. It's all good. So what else, guys? What else do we have on our minds? What else do you guys want to talk about? We still have some time. We can still hang out a little bit. So what else is going on? Because I don't have any more stories. That's all the stuff I didn't make videos about this week. Everything else, there's videos for. You can go watch that if you haven't already. My son laughs at me when I would never have laughed at my dad. Because my dad was pretty scary when he got angry. Hey, bro, when my dad got angry, that was, oh, crap.
I will do anything.
Oh, man, you just, what?
TMB
Bro,
super chatted $50.
That is another
$69.99.
$69.99.
Smiley face emoji.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we get some hearts
How are your
in
games
chat,
going?
please? Can we get some hearts in chat? That is insane. Dude, that's a lot of money. I really appreciate you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for that. And then, of course, gaming. How are your games going? The games are going really well. I've not been playing as much games as I would have liked, to be fair. I've been focusing a lot on trying to spend more time making better videos, going deeper into videos, trying to figure out how to do more research in videos, how to find more truth in the videos that I cover, rather than just, try and make a video. Actually focus on what can I see or find in this video that might be of value to you guys watching the video. So I've been trying to spend a lot of time doing that, rather than just trying to pump out as many videos as possible or anything like that. So it has taken some time from gaming for me, but hey, that's why weekends exist. I can spend tomorrow and Sunday playing a bit of games, and then be back on Monday working as hard as possible to try and make videos that you absolutely find fun in, Because a lot of the time what happens is I'll make a video, and then if I don't spend enough time actually researching the video, only after the video will I find like something that could have been super helpful if I had put it in the video. And I want to try and stop that from happening. So yeah, that's sort of my big focus now, is to really hone in on that. Look for the truth takes a lot of time. Oh yes, TMB, 100%. Takes more time than most people would realize, that I even realized. Okay, have you ever thought about deving out a game? Yeah. One of my dreams would be to make my own video game. It's genuinely one of the things I'm hoping I can one day fund for myself. It's one of the reasons I want this channel to grow, and I want to continue to go bigger and bigger on the channel, because I want to make my own game. I'm sick and tired of people spoiling games and making shit that doesn't matter. So yeah, that's on the list of things that I'm planning to do. It's just an easy game to sink time in. The Afrikaner refugee causing a meltdown by the leftists in the USA. Oh, Rob, yeah, I saw that. How many of you watched my video on the refugee stuff in America and in South Africa? The South African refugee stuff. Did many of you watch that video already, or? Because I just saw before the stream started that I think that video kind of popped off. It has to have popped off because I suddenly have a lot more subscribers for no reason other than I think that video must have popped off in some way, shape, or form. You haven't gone to watch it and come back to report? I've watched interview with a guy from Orania. Is that what it's called? Orania. Yeah. Orania is like a town in South Africa that's people like to refer to Orania as like a whites only town, but it's not. It's a culture only town, right? So they focus specifically on, if you're not an Afrikaner by culture, you're not welcome there. You have to be an Afrikaner, but not just that, you have to be Christian. So their requirements, even if you are white and you are Afrikaans speaking, if you're not a Christian, you're not allowed to live there. So they're very specific on Afrikaner and also Christian. If you have a minute to just check something out, Joseph Campbell, Hero with a Million Faces, and his other stuff on myths. You mean for offline, TMB? Yeah, Storytelling Eternal Myths. Oh, I will definitely check it out. Yeah, I'd happily check this out. I'm going to add this to watch later. So I can watch that because I love stuff like that. So, well, Take Loud not basically. They have been asked before if a black person shows up that speaks Afrikaans, has the Afrikaans culture, and is Christian, would they let them live there? And if I remember correctly, they said, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because for them, the only thing that's important is that you have to share their culture, you have to share their religion. So that's Orania in a nutshell. I'm on board with your religion and holidays. Dude, you'd think so. So South Africa is a majority Christian nation insofar as roughly 80+% of South Africans are Christian. So South Africa is a full-blown Christian nation. It's only our government that isn't Christian. So our government and our politicians isn't Christian. But the majority of the country is Christian. The problem is mostly the kind of Christian. Right? Because there's a lot of people that hate white people, for example, but do determine themselves to be Christian. Right? So there is questions about your Christianity at that point, but yes. That's higher than most of Europe. Oh yeah, but TMB, I always think when life is hard, you realize that you need help, right? And so that's when you'll return to the Creator, because you realize that you are infallible within yourself, right? Like you cannot do this alone. And so you seek for the Creator. But when life's going great, when you have enough money in your pocket to basically do whatever you want, when you can just do whatever you want, why would I need anyone else, right? If something goes wrong, I can just buy my own stuff. This is why Jesus says it'll be harder for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to go into heaven. And it's nothing to do with the money, right? It's nothing to do with the money. Money isn't the problem. It's that when you're rich, you don't think you need anyone else because your money can help you solve most of your problems. So countries where suffering is high and you're struggling, you realize how desperately you need something. And then the Creator is a pretty good bet, right? Because he made you. He knows how you work and he knows how you tick and he knows how to help you. I agree. That was part of what I realized. Oh yeah. I mean, and if you truly follow God, there's a freedom in learning about him and knowing him. And knowing Jesus and moving closer to him that you won't find anywhere else. I often find no, I won't talk about that. It's fine. Echo, what about the president doing the chants to kill the Boer and all that? Doesn't that stuff worry you? So, Apoch, it's not the president that did the chant to kill the Boer, although he probably did do the chant back in the day. It's Julius Malema, who is the commander-in-chief in waiting of the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters. They're the fourth largest political party in South Africa with about 12% of the vote. He's the one doing the chants. The problem in South Africa is the Constitutional Court of South Africa. Now, South Africa has laws against hatred and racist speech, right? You're not allowed to be racist in South Africa. In fact, and here's a little bit of actual canonical lore for you guys. A woman about 5 years ago, no, it was before COVID lockdown. So let's say 2018, 2017. A woman made a tweet from Durban shortly after the December holidays. In South Africa, December is our big holiday, right? She made a tweet and she took a picture of the beach after millions and millions of people went to the beach for Christmas and New Year's Day and all the rest of it. And the beach looked like a mess. And she tweeted out and she said, something like, look at these monkeys or something like that, right? Now, it was racist. It was absolutely a racist tweet. It was meant to be racist. No one can deny that. She called people monkeys, right? Which obviously is very, very racist, and you should not be tweeting stuff like that. And I fully agree that you shouldn't be tweeting stuff like this. But here's the interesting thing. She got fined hundreds of thousands of rands for that tweet. And if she couldn't pay the fine, she would have to go to jail for 5 years. That she was found guilty in a court for racism, and therefore she had to pay the money or go to jail. Julius Malema can sing, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. He's singing that. I mean, if we want to talk about racism, in one, you're literally calling people some weird names, right? In another, you're literally saying, kill him. The Constitutional Court of South Africa ruled that is not hate speech. It's not racist. He's allowed to say that. So that's the problem we have in this country. There's such a miscarriage of justice. Some things are okay, other things are just not okay. But specifically, if a white person does it, not allowed. If a black person does it, no problem, right? We had a few months ago, we had a guy that literally word for word said that white people aren't human. They're a type of, I think, demon. And that we should not treat white people as human. Said this on a podcast. Now, if I said that, I'd be in jail. I would. As a white guy, you cannot say that. This guy had nothing happen to him. Nothing. No cases opened against him. No charges were filed. So in South Africa, if you're white, screw you. If you're black, do whatever you want. Nothing will happen to you. Liberals are the ones pushing that virtue signal bullshit. Boston, you're not wrong. You are not wrong. Rob, I can see that. Free speech isn't free. Someone has to fight for it, and there is always a price. Rob, I think the problem in South Africa is there's no real way for us to fight. Right? So when people say white people aren't refugees and it's a democratic country. This is what my government is currently saying, right? So my country currently is saying South Africa is a democratic, constitutional country, and therefore these white people can vote if they don't like it. There's nothing holding them back from voting for change. Well, there is. I live in a country of over 60 million people. There is, of my people, specifically the Afrikaner, there's 3.8 million. We're 3.8 million. Women, children, men. Total, 3.8 million. If you put English-speaking people alongside us, so now you have the Afrikaners and the English people, it's 5.6, I think, million people. Women, children, everything. Our vote means nothing. We make up less than 9% of the total population. We can't vote ourselves out of anything. If you don't like the current government and the racist stuff they do, nothing you can do about it. Gotta go, keep fighting what you believe in, and always call out all BS. TMB, thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate you. And also thank you so much for all the support. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, sir. Kosabako 5. Yeah, it's sort of, I mean, it's crazy in a way, but also at the same time, it's expected. I've watched the stories. Yeah, SA is doing very poorly. Very poorly at the moment. But it is what it is, you know. There's not much that I can do about it. Dude, it's been such a long time since I've watched Team America. America, yeah, coming to save motherfucking day, yeah, America, yeah. A once prosperous country is now becoming Zimbabwe. I don't know if it'll actually become Zimbabwe. I don't know if the same things will apply, because in South Africa you do have a significant problem that you don't have in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, what ended up happening was the majority black population told the white people to get out. Now, the majority of white Zimbabweans had British passports, so they went back home. They went back to Britain. Those who didn't have British passports simply came to South Africa. Right? So they could just leave. The problem you have here in South Africa is if the black population told the white people to get out, where? Right? So take away America's offer of refugee status. Where do white people go? Because no other nation will really take them in and around South Africa, because it's all majority black nations that don't really want a lot of white people. Right? So they can't go anywhere. The majority of white South Africans don't have passports for any other nation. It's either South Africa or the sea. So if that were to happen in South Africa, it would be war. It would have to lead to war, because those people have one of two options: either lose everything and go into complete bankruptcy, or fight. Maybe die, but at least you'd go down swinging. Tekla, we can't go to Germany. Someone said this on my video as well. They were like, I don't care that the white people are getting genocided, but if this is such a big problem, I think that was their quote, if this is such a big problem, I don't want them coming to America. They can go back to Germany and France. And it's like, well, okay. Germany and France doesn't want us, first and foremost. They've never wanted us. In fact, it is almost impossible for a South African to go to Europe. Getting into Europe is almost impossible for a South African. More importantly than that, my family arrived in South Africa in 1838. I'm no longer German. Hey, I've been here for a long time. Almost 200 years. I've been in South Africa. My family has been in South Africa. My ancestors' blood is on this soil, right? So there's no way for me to go back to Europe. I don't have the European culture. The thing is, the majority of, if we want to talk culturally, which country South Africans are the closest to, it is America. The culture, from a culture perspective, South Africans and Americans are the closest. South Africans don't have the European culture. We're not like Germany. We're not like France. Our culture is completely different. We're very similar to America. And I would say there's a lot of similarities to Australia as well. But funnily enough, Australian culture is also pretty similar to American culture. Caleb, yeah, pretty much, right? Now becoming Zimbabwe. The USA is accepting refugees from SA. Yeah, I know. Rob, but all of this is predicated on the imagine if no one was accepting refugees, right? And I understand exactly. This is why I made that video. This is why I felt it was so important to make that video. Because people are looking at this thing in South Africa and they're saying it's not a genocide. Because there's only like 60 people being killed every single year. First, those statistics are not to be believed. Because, as I've already told you in the video, the police of South Africa does not record race in murder and in crime statistics. So it's a guess. At best, it's a guess. Oh, yeah, we think it's about 60 people per year. But you don't actually know. When you go off of the anecdotal evidence, the WhatsApp groups that exist of farm communities reporting their own murders on these WhatsApp groups, it's far higher than 60. But even at 60, with a population of 3.8 million, that's a lot of people to be killed every single year. And these 60 people aren't killed just because of random violence. They're killed specifically because they are white. Right? So the idea here isn't that it's a genocide in the way that people will think about genocide. The problem is that it could become a genocide the way that people think of a genocide. And that's the thing that most people don't want to admit. That's the thing that most people don't want to talk about. They just go, well, it's not a genocide right now. Genocide requires mass killing. Well, genocides are, someone said to me in this chat, actually, one of you said, genocides are systematic. They're not something that happens. It's very rare, actually, for genocides to happen overnight. But you saw in Rwanda, for example, where in one night, nearly 500,000 people lost their lives. That's actually super rare in genocides. In most genocides, there's a sort of, it's a slow roll, right? You're slowly but surely getting rid of one population. Caleb, I prefer ethnic cleansing, yes? So I prefer the term ethnic cleansing because ethnic cleansing isn't just killing. Ethnic cleansing is the idea that you want to get rid of a specific ethnicity. And you're actually seeing it in my own government. Let me show you guys this. And they also tweet a lot of bullshit. And let me just find it. They put out an official statement. you can show what you can see what I'm looking at. Because they're now going out of their way to try and pretend like there's nothing wrong here, and that people are just lying. But I'm just looking for that official statement. I hope they didn't remove it. This one. Oh, come on, man. Where is that statement? This is what happens when you don't really follow your own bloody government and the nonsense they speak. Because, yeah, following my own government is such a useless thing. Because most of the tweets is just a bunch of nonsense. It really wants to, but has its hands tied by international relations. I believe the only reason the ruling of South African party isn't committing genocide is its international PR and funding. Oh, I have the same theory. I have the exact same theory. So my theory is the EFF, who is the party that's spouting all the kill the Boer stuff, the EFF is doing this because the government can't. Right? If the government were to sing those songs, they'd be in deep shit. So instead, they let the EFF do it because then they have plausible deniability, right? They can say, hold on, it's not us. We're the government. These guys are opposition. But all of the members of the EFF come from the ANC. They were all part of the ANC once upon a time. So my theory is actually that they're actually working together. Because during the 49, when the 59 people left, what day was that? Does anyone remember? We're getting close now. Sure. Because they actually, the reason I want to bring this up is it's a, they effectively say that we, the people that want to leave South Africa and become refugees in America, are fleeing from racial justice. So, in other words, getting your stuff taken from you and losing your property is you not wanting them to take your property is just you fleeing from racial justice. It's not. It has nothing to do with being a refugee. Why can I not find it? It's so annoying, man. Let's see. I'm trying to find it. Oh, The South African government just told the world that white Afrikaner refugees aren't fleeing persecution, they're fleeing racial justice. Their president then called them cowards for escaping. Within hours, the US National Security Council suspended all agency cooperation with South Africa's G20. This isn't politics, this is a diplomatic earthquake. A democracy just admitted it believes certain people deserve suffering. This was a very serious escalation. An entire crashing out, over 49 people leaving. Yeah, I have to say, it's super interesting to me that we were told from the beginning we don't belong here. And now that people want to leave, now everyone's angry at those people who want to leave. So you have, for example, KK saying South Africa has a population of about 60 million people, and the media is worried about 49 Afrikaners leaving the country. Let's be serious, guys. It's the first 49. A lot more will follow. More importantly, the issue isn't the number, but the factors and principles surrounding the entire thing. Any government anywhere around the world has a responsibility to safeguard and protect the integrity and sovereignty of its country. How is this? The South African government is contemplating its approach if the 49 Afrikaners who departed for the United States on Sunday night choose to return home. How is this a reflection on the country? Like, you can do whatever you want, right? If people want to leave, why is everyone so upset? Like, you can just say, doesn't matter, right? I think here it is, right? So, yeah, look at this. This is from the African National Congress. So this is from the ANC, the ruling party. It says here, the African National Congress registers its firm rejection of the United States government's decision to grant refugee status to 49 individuals self-identifying as Afrikaners. Let it be categorically stated, there are no Afrikaner refugees in South Africa. No section of our society is hounded, persecuted, or subject to ethnic victimization, except for the fact that you can lose your farm because the government wants to take farms from white people and wants to do it with null compensation. Except for the fact, of course, that you can't get a job as a white person because there's 142 laws that govern who can work where. You can't build a company that can get business from the government because the government will not do business with any company that is not black-owned, majority black-owned. So, yeah, there's no laws that target white people except for all the laws that target white people. This year, as we commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter, we call its enduring truth that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. This is further enshrined in our constitution, which affirms equality, dignity, and non-racialism as the bedrock of our national life. What the instigators of this falsehood seek is not safety, but impunity from transformation. They flee not from persecution, but from justice, equality, and accountability for a historic privilege. Literally saying that they must stay so that we can make them suffer. That's what that passage says. That entire passage says that because now that they're gone, you can literally take their land and do whatever you want with it, right? They're gone. They're no longer in your country. So you can now take the land that they owned, take the properties that they owned, and do whatever you want. You can transform the economy in whichever way you want. I don't see what the problem is. They're basically doing you a bloody favor. Except, of course, listen again to the wording. What the instigators of this falsehood seek is not safety, but impunity from transformation. In other words, we want to transform the economy by taking their shit and giving it to other people. They want to flee that. They don't want to deal with that. They flee not from persecution, but from justice. Us taking their shit is justice for historic privilege. Because they were once upon a time privileged, we need to take their stuff. And the fact that they're fleeing before we can punish them for their stuff, that's not okay. The United States should stop trying to interfere with us, trying to punish these whiteys for the stuff that they've had. Anyone please tell me how this isn't racist? Caleb, no. If you want to link, just link in Discord. YouTube is weird with links. If you want to do it in Discord, I have my Discord open, so you're welcome to just send the link in Discord, and I'll click it. Yeah, I mean, it is typical communist stuff, right? But this is the sort of bullshit that you deal with every single day. I don't think people realize, right? If you're a South African, you kind of wake up every single day not knowing what's coming next. Like, what's your government going to dream up next about your race that might cause problems, right? So what's the next law that they're going to introduce to try and take away some of your rights? A while ago, the South African government started to toy with the idea of an online censorship bureau of some kind, where luckily they changed the wording after a lot of pushback from civil society, because what they ultimately wanted in the law was that anyone who produces any content for online consumption, both movies and series and YouTube videos, because remember, YouTube is a type of content that is produced for online consumption, would first have to be submitted to this body so that this body can decide whether or not the content meets its requirements before it is uploaded. Now, a lot of civil society pushback later, and basically them realizing that it would be untenable for them to even get that done. They eventually changed the wording to make it so that it's only for movies. So movies have to be submitted so that they can rate them and whatever. But that was the original intent of the law, was to try and basically govern everything that someone sends. And the way the wording was originally was even tweets. Even if you're just writing it, if it's for online consumption, you'd have to submit to this government bureau before you can write it. Which channel did you link it in? General, Caliph. Oh, in the Resistance. Nice. Wait, which one? Which one here is yours? Stuff behind endless bureaucracy. True. Frozen Solid. Boys, I got to bail. See you next week, Akko, and the rest of you on Discord. Z Vengeance, take care of yourself, sir. The one that's just a link and title? Oh, this one. Wait, you guys aren't hearing chat? What? Why? You should be hearing it. No audio for audience, but why not? Oh. Oh, I remember now. I know why you guys aren't hearing any. Man. I completely forgot. I'm using a new browser now.
What was different? I read with
How about now?
In the latest issue of Islander magazine, there is an article by Will Tanner entitled Rhodesia, a Nation Betrayed, which I read with fascination, as it brought together several strands of thought that I've been mulling over and provides a concrete example of how esoteric thinkers of the 20th century, though their roots are divergent and circuitous, ended up arriving at the same conclusion about liberalism. In his article, Tanner details what was different about Rhodesia than the other African colonies ruled by the Europeans. South Africa was predominantly Boer, Mozambique and Angola were Portuguese, and German East Africa was, of course, German. However, Rhodesia was primarily English, settled almost exclusively from the UK, and it retained a very strong Anglo culture right up until its collapse. Rhodesia famously described itself as more British than the British, and it really showed. Before Cecil Rhodes had led his pioneer column into what would become Rhodesia in 1890, the land was sparsely occupied by tribes who lived at a subsistence level in what were essentially pre-technological agrarian and pastoralist groups. Though the English population of Rhodesia was always very small, peaking at around 300,000 in the 1970s, with around 7 million Africans, this relatively small number of Brits were able to create a nation with high living standards and industrial capacity, which was capable of fielding a tightly disciplined military known as the Fire Force. This was a combined light arms mobile strike force that was supremely effective at locating and destroying communist guerrilla insurgents. And as far as I can see, they never lost an engagement, and it was only because of the great betrayal of Rhodesia by the West that Rhodesia was forced to capitulate. As Tanner details in his article, Rhodesia was run on the paternalistic model of the British Empire and allowed a limited franchise. Only educated, property-owning people were able to vote, the same democratic system, incidentally, that the United States was founded upon. The Rhodesians, after having set up their own civilization equal to contemporary European societies, invested a great amount of time and money into raising up the African natives to a greater standard of living, which allowed their population to double in only a single generation. There was no system of apartheid in Rhodesia. The Anglo-Rhodesians lived cheek by jowl with the Africans. They employed them as domestic servants and labourers and seemed to get on well enough with them, even if there was a minority rule of the country. It wasn't that the Rhodesians had rules that stipulated that Africans could not own property and be incorporated into the political system. They were, however, keenly aware that the preservation of high standards in personal and political life, a traditionally British preoccupation at the time, had enabled their civilization to flourish, and it was this that allowed them to build a first world country out of nothing.
A few black Africans have fine homes like these on the outskirts of Salisbury. As the population grows, so too will the ambitions of the black majority.
There were a minority of Africans who had taken very well to British education, did own property and were able to vote. But this was...
To this day, though, most Zimbabweans are some of the best educated people in Africa. Like, really good.
Was always a very small proportion of the African population, and this inequality became a fixation to the Western powers as much as to the communist powers during the Cold War. However, the living standards for both the Anglo and African populations of Rhodesia were very high compared to their neighbours, and it seemed that this trend of incorporation would gradually increase over time if it were allowed to develop. Generation after generation, more Africans would have been given the franchise, would have owned property, would have been able to uphold the country that had grown up around them. What this arrangement wasn't, however, was liberal.
This is a young country to which the white man came only 120 years ago. Today, the white man is outnumbered 20-1 by the black. But the political power is his, because the Rhodesian doctrine is that the reins of government must remain in what Mr. Smith describes as civilized hands. It's this insistence that makes a settlement impossible, while the British government stands firm on the 5 principles.
Rhodesia's success was built on a practical compromise, in which all groups could find some benefit, a typically British colonial attitude at the time. Inequality was, indeed, a part of life, and the pragmatic colonial mindset was to accept the differences between the Anglos and the Africans and attempt towards mitigating and improving circumstances for the good of all. After the Second World War, liberalism became the ruling creed of the Western powers due to the hegemony of the United States, the greatest liberal experiment yet, and this moral system was imposed upon places for which it was not well suited. Liberalism as an ideology holds that all people are fundamentally the same in all places and all times, which means they are all entitled to an absolute equality of the same set of rights, and to be properly moral means to concede everything to this abstract demand. And I want to be clear that I don't think this was actually a conscious decision on the part of the United States or Americans either. They are not the villains of this piece. They are as much the victims of ideology as anyone else. The 20th century was the century of ideology. And ideology was a relatively new phenomenon at the time, having only been a growing part of the political process for roughly 100 years until that point. Moreover, extracting oneself from ideology is a very difficult thing to do that I will discuss elsewhere at another time. I don't blame the people of the 20th century for not having accomplished in their day what we are still struggling with now. Returning to Rhodesia, reality imposed restrictions that required compromises. Again, not to be too blunt about it, but the Rhodesians were attempting to bring people who they had found living in the Stone Age, without even the wheel, to the level of the most advanced industrial societies the world had yet then known. The social institutions required to accomplish this goal take time to develop, and this time...
You see, the thing is, I understand the plan, right? I understand the plan. The idea is, remember, you arrive in Africa, and because of Africa and how Africa is situated, the Africans never really had a need to innovate, had a need to advance, because Africa is the land of plenty. If you want food, it's all around you. You want water, there's plenty of it. The winters aren't super cold. The summers are quite nice and hot. So there's no need to come up with fuel sources that are more advanced than wood, right? Because there's plenty of wood, and wood is year round. There's no need to come up with crazy building standards or anything of that nature, because the land doesn't require it. It's not like Europe, where half the year the entire place is under snow, very difficult to find food, you won't be able to forage for anything. So in Europe, the human is forced to advance. Everything needs to be advanced. How we store food, how we get food, how we grow food. So everything just leads to more and more advancement. And obviously you're forced to get boats because you're in a weird place. Now you have to go to another weird place and hopefully there's more there, right? But you don't have that problem in Africa. Africa doesn't have the same issues that Europe would have had, right? So fundamentally, it sort of plays into ultimately this thing. Now the European arrives on African soil and it meets a group of people that have no education whatsoever, at least what we would call formal education, right? They were very smart with a bunch of stuff. For example, when the farmers of the Dutch first arrived here, they had no idea how to farm on African soil. It was the locals, the Khoisan, that taught them how to farm. Because it's very different to how you would do it in Europe. But so they knew how to do it, and they were doing it, but very small scale, because they didn't have large communities they had to feed. You know, so the English and the Zulu taught the English a lot about the land and how to work it, and you know, what cattle farming would be like here and all the rest of it, right? So they had a lot of knowledge about Africa and about how things worked in Africa, but what we would consider formal education in the West, they had none of that, right? What's math? Who cares, right? We don't need that here because we're not building engines or boats or anything. Where do we want to go? We're perfectly happy where we are now. So fundamentally, I get the sentiment, right? You can't just immediately take a group of people that have no idea what an economy is, what an economy even consists of, and just give them the same rights, right? Because it's going to cause chaos. But at the same time, your attempt to make it go smoothly still means that a number of people are now living in noticeably worse conditions than a number of other people. And it just so happens that all the people that are living in what you now consider to be the good conditions have one skin color, and you that don't have that skin color don't get all of those benefits. Now, I get from the white man's perspective or the British perspective here, they want to do it slowly, generation after generation, include more people in the economy as education rises, more people, and hopefully in 10 or 20 generations, everyone lives on this standard. And everyone is now, advanced and educated and all the rest. But you're still asking a group of people to live in squalor while you live in what they would consider to be luxury. So you can see why the group at the bottom isn't going to accept this deal, right? They're not going to go, oh, so I should just live here, but maybe my kids' kids one day will live in a house. Why would I accept that, right? So I get the idea, but it was never going to work. Daniel, I'll answer it afterwards.
Time was denied to them by the Western powers.
The standard is, if I can put words in your mouth and forgive me for doing so, there are certain people in this country who don't have the necessary level of sophistication or education to be allowed to vote.
That is correct. And as I say, it applies to you whatever your colour.
Now that is seen by many people in the outside world as racist. Do you consider yourself a racist?
No, I certainly don't. In fact, I live so close to the problem of racialism with so many black people around me that I think I'm conscious of the need to ensure that I'm not a racist.
The system that Rhodesia ran under, which was created by the British, was declared anathematic to Britain. Whether you support this position or not, it is evident that such a policy was doomed to failure because of the circumstances of the peoples involved, and history, of course, bears this out. This is not a moral judgment, but a practical fact. The process of decolonization in Africa was a gradual process of decline, as people who did not have the skills required to maintain a certain level of civilization were given control over it, which is to say, of course, nothing of the massacres that went along with such changes. During the decolonization of Africa, it was under Labour Prime Minister Harold Wilson's demand of Nimba, meaning the decolonization of Africa would only be done with majority rule, that caused the Britain-loving Rhodesians, under Ian Smith, to unilaterally declare independence from Britain. As a left-wing politician, Wilson had an intransigently ideological perspective on the situation, and the liberal perspective dictates, as we covered, that fundamentally people are all the same and therefore must have the same rights, and in this case that meant universal suffrage, regardless of the real-world consequences that this would have. In 1974, Ian Smith appeared on Firing Line with William F. Buckley to discuss Rhodesia, in which Buckley conducted what amounted to a liberal inquisition against Smith. Buckley would advance positions that presumed all people were the same, and therefore the differences in society were not justified, and Smith would respond in a manner that respected the moral cause of Buckley's liberalism, but explained that circumstances on the ground revealed that it was wrong, and by adopting Buckley's position, he would bring about the ruination of his own country.
Do you think that this is largely because of these tribal traditions you have described, or is it a feeling of impotence that results from their feeling that this is a white society governed by white people for the benefit of white people?
I don't believe that they are influenced by that. There are a few who are politically motivated, yes, the agitators, the political leaders, I don't deny this. But the vast majority of them openly say, we've always lived under a system where you have governed the country and we're satisfied with what you have done. We are happy under our tribal system, why don't you leave us alone? And quite frankly, when you go amongst them and see how they live, I think it is debatable as to whether our system is better than theirs.
The liberal West could simply not understand Smith's realist position, and so branded Rhodesia as a racist country. In doing so, they sealed Rhodesia's fate by siding with the communist bloc and ensuring that Rhodesia would not survive. The majority of Africans in Rhodesia had supported and cooperated with the Anglo-dominated Rhodesian government. Many had fought in its military and desired to take advantage of...
I would just like to say that is his perspective on it. Now, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it is his opinion, right? So that guy, the president of Rhodesia, is saying that the majority is happy. But do we know if the majority was happy? I don't know, right? I don't know enough about Rhodesia or their history to make that determination.
The material prosperity Rhodesia had attained. The small number of African communist guerrillas, many of whom were not Rhodesian, were not able to find great purchase in the prospering African societies of Rhodesia, and were often turned into the authorities by the Africans themselves. But the communist guerrillas were well supplied with arms, fuel, and intelligence by the communist powers, while the Western powers imposed sanctions and blockades on Rhodesia and its allies for being insufficiently liberal.
Well, there's got to be some reason for the consternation that the mere mention of Rhodesia causes in many parts of the world. There is a general conviction that it is a racist society run for the benefit of white people. Now, this could be objectively true, irrespective of the question of whether the excluded blacks were perfectly contented. You would acknowledge that, wouldn't you?
Yes, I accept that this is a situation that exists, but I believe wrongly so. I think most of our critics have never taken the trouble to come here and find out the facts for themselves.
On this point, the communists and liberals were in agreement. Distinctions between peoples were morally forbidden to be recognized, regardless of the reality on the ground. And the history of race relations in the United States was used by Buckley to bludgeon Smith, even where it wasn't applicable. Rhodesia had never been a slave society, and the United States had always been majority European. Things were not the same, and yet the singular standard was advanced because of the ideological commitments of the West and the East. It is noteworthy that two very different philosophers arrived from completely different angles on much the same point in this regard. In Revolt Against the Modern World, the very right-wing Julius Evola noted that the capitalist West and communist East both were materialistic and ideological powers which were converging on the old, practical, traditional methods of life. Quote, Russia and America are like two ends of the same pair of pincers that are closing in from east and west around the nucleus of ancient Europe, which is too depleted in its energies and in its men to put up an effective resistance.
Wow, that's
The
interesting.
very left-wing Herbert Marcuse makes the same observation in One-Dimensional Man. Marcuse barely even distinguishes between capitalism and communism, noting that they are both industrial technological societies which compress human life down into a singular ideological dimension in which opposites are forced to live in tension with one another. The force of this society captures and contains the scope of human activity within its systems of domination, which is less favourable than the kind of society that had preceded it. The philosophy of liberalism, whether
Interesting.
expressed in the classical sense by the United States or the extreme sense in the Soviet Union, had ensnared Rhodesia by completely capturing the minds of its adherents and caused them to bear down on this last nucleus of ancient Europe, as embodied by Rhodesia. Isolated on the world stage, starved of fuel by the British government, and under great ideological pressure while bleeding population as Anglos fled to South Africa, Rhodesia eventually capitulated in 1979. Though Rhodesia had won the battles, it had lost the war, and Robert Mugabe's sanguinary dictatorship began in April 1980. We had betrayed them to the communist race terrorists, and you can explore the history of Zimbabwe to discover what a tragedy that became.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the concept, but I do think you're always going to run into problems, right? You're always going to run into issues of how people are willing to live, right? What people are willing to put up with. And I understand that people might want to make the argument, hey, we're doing this slowly because slowly but surely wins the race. But that's just always going to be right. It's always going to lead to some people not being okay with it. I do know the communists had a huge hand to play even in South Africa in many ways. So it is what it is, right? Sorry if you've already answered this, but will you be coming to America? I'd personally love it if you did. Daniel, first and foremost, how you doing, brother? I hope you're doing well. And secondly, I don't know, right? For me, it's a case of God will put me where he wants me to be, right? I also, in terms of making that decision, I probably won't be public with that decision. Just because it's become relatively dangerous to be public with that decision. I know that sounds strange, but it really has become. We have newspapers here that's basically going around doxing people who accepted the refugee invite. You have the government threatening that they'll persecute or at least look into every single person that might accept the invite. So from my perspective, it's probably better if I don't either admit or deny or anything like that. When I've made that decision, what I'll say for now is I've not yet made a full decision on it. But when I make that decision, I'll probably only let people know once I'm out of the country. If I decide, right, I might decide to stay, in which case, I'll just stay here and make content here. But I think anyone that thinks that, any South African that thinks, hey, I might want to go to America, my advice to you would be keep the hell quiet. Don't speak about it. Don't talk about it. Don't tell anyone about it, because the media is going out of their way to dox and find, name and shame anyone. And you have groups that are starting to form on X and online that are trying to attack. I guess in some way right now it's mainly online, but they're basically making these people's lives hell. And I'm not sure it will stay online. I think what will happen, because the media did it openly, by the way. Just a few weeks ago, they openly, in the newspaper, published the name, the surname, the city where this guy lives, or the town where this guy lives. Everything was published publicly in a newspaper for everyone to find. Right? So what can happen now is quite legitimately, if there are very angry groups in the country that might want to make an example, they know exactly where to find this guy. They know exactly. It's literally printed in the newspaper. So, yeah, right now, I would say if you're South African and you're thinking of leaving South Africa, you keep the hell quiet. You just quietly go do whatever you need to do in order to get refugee status and, get out. And once you're in America, you can probably tweet and say, yeah, see you guys, bitch. Oh, yeah, they named his parents as well. Literally his parents, family members, everyone. And there's another group of people that is currently desperately trying to learn the names of the refugees that had left already, because they're looking for the family members of the refugees that had left already. This tells you exactly what's happening. It's a whole sort of idea of, we'll make you so afraid of leaving that you just simply will not leave. Decide to do. I hope you stay safe regardless. History is very clear on what kind of horror that kind of ideology unleashes on people. Epic Cthulhu, you are not wrong, sir. Doing great, thank you. And yeah, your answer makes sense. Praying for you, brother. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, sir. I can definitely use the prayers. But ultimately, God will put me where he wants me, right? How easy is it to visit outside of Africa? Visit, not that hard. But staying, very hard. You know, if you want to stay, you need to make a lot of money. First and foremost, because it's not cheap. And yeah, it's a big deal, really. Be careful indeed, but the more go, the more work it would need to be. Yes, yeah, I sort of wonder what's gonna happen. Because I wouldn't be surprised if eventually there's groups standing and waiting outside the embassy, literally taking pictures of everyone that goes to the embassy, and that way following them, doing all sorts of stuff. Because it does appear like there's a growing number of people in this country that, by might, will force white people to stay. Like, if you don't want to stay on your own accord, they'll force you to stay. That appears to be the goal at the moment, at least. And again, I just keep coming back to the same thing. I don't understand why. You don't want us here in the first place, so why is this such a big problem for you? You know, you should be celebrating the fact that the white people are finally getting out of your life, you know? Because that's what we constantly hear. How does he even know this man is a racist? I don't understand. Like, I'm looking at this, and you have this Dwight Marshall guy going, so Trump is busy deporting Hispanics who voted for him. Only to wait. Dwight, what are you talking about? You cannot be that stupid, sir. You're an economist, and you're saying that Hispanics that are in America illegally voted for Trump? I find that very suspicious, sir. Are you now admitting that you guys allow illegals to vote in America? Is this what's happening here? Is this the admittance that we've been waiting for, boys? The left is finally admitting that the reason they hate the fact that all the illegals are going is because the illegals vote for the Democrats the whole time. Sounds like it's all about having power over the whites rather than getting rid of them. You leave and they no longer have power over you. Dominus, that's literally it. But of course, Dwight Marshall is just assuming that this guy is a racist. Does he have any evidence that this guy is a racist? Yeah, Cesius, but at the end of the day, I don't really care, right? I'm Afrikaner, and I couldn't give two shits. Like, if you want to hate me because of, stuff that I can't change, there's nothing I can do about that, right? Like, I don't know what else I can do. It's who I am. He's got a beard and looks like he votes Republican. Oh, my friend. The majority of white people that will go to America will vote Republican. Trust me on that. But yeah, you can trust me. There's not many Boers that will go to America and vote Democrat. Not very many. Saxon African in the replies pointed out the same. Yeah. Yeah, very hardcore Christian, very hardcore conservative. It is what it is. You know, there's not much that I can do about this now. We'll see. I'm just still absolutely I'm flabbergasted at the fact that Keir Starmer, the most left-wing pro-immigration dude ever, is now suddenly super anti-immigration. Like, just look at this. If you're one of the smugglers putting people in small boats across the channel, we're coming after you. Farage bonked him. Writes these posts. Morning PM. Let's talk about the Muslim rape and torture gangs here in the UK. But this post is so stupid, man. Are you also coming after the people in small boats are escaping from? Why is that the UK's problem? Someone bombed his car recently. Fear maybe. Daxin, I have no idea. But I just don't understand. Why is it the UK's problem to solve everyone else's problems? Yeah, I never understand this. There is a genuine need to take in refugees, right? Obviously. But there's also a limit to the amount of refugees that a country can take. You can't just open your borders and just say, yeah, everyone come in. You know, I'll take the one that's happening in South Africa right now, but with Trump basically saying Afrikaner refugees can come in. From what I've heard, and I don't know much about the whole process, but from what I've heard, it's quite grueling. You don't just get to go to the embassy and be like, yeah, get me on a flight. You have to apply, and then once you've applied, you get a date. Now, before you get the date, there's a screening done apparently on your name or whatever details you provide, like just an initial screening. Then you go to the embassy, and they have it's like an interview with you. During the interview, you have to supply them with everything, right? All of your details. ID number, the works. They ask for everything. Then apparently, you need a police clearance certificate. So you have to prove that you have never been involved in a crime whatsoever. Then you need a medical exam that proves that you have no diseases or anything like that. Then they have a bunch of clearance stuff and stuff that's done by, I think, the CIA that's also researching you, right? And investigating you to make sure that you're not some... And only then, right, do you get to go. And after you arrive, the investigations doesn't stop. Right? So once you're in the US, you actually apparently get assigned... I was watching this guy speak about it. He's an intelligence analyst from America. And he actually said, once you arrive, you get visited 3 times a week by what is called a placement officer. This placement officer checks up on you, make sure that you're okay, right? Make sure that you're taken care of and everything's fine for you. But also that you're looking for a job. Once you find your job, all the assistance stops, right? Because they're helping you until you get your job. So they're sort of showing up every few days and going, found a job yet? kind of thing. Right. And the investigation doesn't stop. So once you're there, it's actually the FBI that starts investigating you to make sure that you're not a criminal, you're not involved with any sort of organizations of any kind. So by the time you get the okay to stay, because apparently you're basically, when you first arrive, it's something like you're there on probation. That's why you get placed in a specific state. You can't choose the state that you go to. You get placed in a specific state, and you have to stay there for the first 3 years because they need to know where you are at all times. And then, and only then, you are free to go, right? Because now you've proven that you're American, you've stayed there, you've got your green card. Now you can do whatever. So it's not just a case of walk in and gung-ho happy. It's a massive process that you go through, which I think is okay. That's how it should be. Remember, you are going to another country, and another country is taking you in, opening their doors for you, which is a privilege, not a right. It's a privilege that another country is saying you're welcome to come in. So from my perspective, that's how it should be done. You know, I don't see why people think the doors should just always be open and countries should just be throwing open the doors and making sure that everyone can come and go as they please. The door to being able to publicly talk about not wanting mass immigration, particularly from third world nations. Matty B, yeah. I think it's more okay now, and I think Americans should be allowed to voice that. Right? I think Americans should be allowed to say, look, I don't want Afrikaner refugees. That's your right, you know? And I think Americans should have the right to say, I don't want Afrikaner refugees living in my neighborhood or living in my city. And then I think a mayor of a city needs to respect that. Because Americans have the right to choose who and where they live and who lives with them. I don't think as a refugee you get to make the rules, right? And I don't think as a refugee you get to demand that some things are given to you. You're a visitor in that country. You're there at invitation. You do what you accept what they give you, and everything else you just have to accept. You know, this is just how it is. Jock? I thought I heard knocking. Sargon and his stream went, man, it really sounds like Kier just watched all my talking points for the last 10 years. He's probably not wrong. Freedom of association, something that's already under attack. True. I don't mind refugees coming over so long as they are properly vetted and follow all proper procedures. I think I absolutely respect that, Matty. I think that's how it should be, right? I mean, if I lived in America and I lived there long enough that I become a citizen, I would feel exactly the same. Obviously, you guys live in America and you want to continue to live in a country that you recognize. I would, if I lived in America, I would have lived there because I love what the country is and I wouldn't want to see it change, you know? And I would say what Trump and the American government needs to do is if any South African goes to America and refuses to integrate, they should be sent back home. And I say this as a South African. If you're refusing to integrate, if you're refusing to learn the language, if you're refusing to follow the guides and follow the rules, you should be sent back home. Right? Because you had your chance. You didn't want to integrate. These people opened their doors for you. Now is not the time for you to, bring your culture to this new nation. They'll take the parts that they like and they'll leave the rest, and you have to accept that. She says, yeah, I think this is the one thing that most South Africans will love about America, barbecue. They'll feel right at home. They'll be like, wait, let's go, man. Like, you guys barbecue your meat? Me too. Barbecue, beer, and football. Although rugby is more for the Afrikaners. But I'm sure they'll learn how to love football as well. Trump's immigration policies have won me over. I do hope he maintains a fair but unwavering hand over this. Epic Cthulhu, I agree with you. I hope. There's a number of things I love that Trump has done, right? Obviously, I can't complain about the whole South African thing. But at the same time, I also love, we spoke about this during the stream the other day. I love the fact that Trump has this new self-deportation program going. I think that's genius. And the reason I think it's genius is it's sort of like do the right thing and get rewarded for it. If you're in America illegally, give yourself up, right? So we won't come to your house. We won't embarrass you in front of your family or anything. Give yourself up, right? We send you out, but then we also give you an easy way back in. So if you're a good worker, if you're a loyal, if you're a loyal citizen effectively of the country, so you had a job and you were working and you were contributing to your society, you can be back in America, at least according to some of the people I've heard, within 6 months. And then you come back in as legal, right? You're now allowed to be there, which means now you're allowed to apply for your green card, which apparently is also going to be an expedited process. You're also going to be expedited to get your citizenship, dependent on how long you were in America in the first place. From my perspective, that's like perfect, right? Because what you want as America are productive, good, law-abiding immigrants. Right? That's what you want. Yeah, you're welcome to come back. They're going to make a pathway for you to come back faster if you self-deport. If you don't self-deport, you'll never be allowed to come back in, which is genius, right? Because you're basically saying, hey, we don't have to go around looking for people. They'll come to us. It's humane. It's perfect. It rewards good behavior. I think that's brilliant. I love it. Rob, I actually agree 100% with that. Getting deported because you fought over rugby versus football would be hilarious, though. Dude, I wouldn't put it past the Afrikaners. We're a feisty nation. But if America was ever in a war, there's no one better than an Afrikaner. It's like there's an American general that actually said this, where he said the Brits fight for the Queen or for the King. The German fight for the fatherland. The French realize too late that they have to fight, I think. And the Boer, those sons of bitches fight for the hell of it. There was a German general that said it. Let me see if I can find you the quote. Oh no, I'm lying. So here's the exact quote. You have Field Marshal Bernard L. Montgomery, British Army officer and a major commander of the Allied forces during the Second World War, that said, "Give me 20 divisions American soldiers and I will breach Europe. Give me 15 consisting of Englishmen and I will advance to the borders of Berlin. Give me 2 divisions of those marvelous fighting Boers and I will remove Germany from the face of the earth." Then you had American General George Guts and Glory Patton that said, "The Americans fight for the free world. The English mostly for honor and glory and medals. The French and the Canadians decide too late that they have to participate. The Italians are too scared to fight. The Russians have no choice. The Germans for the fatherland. The Boers, those sons of bitches, fight for the hell of it." And then Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes, wrote, "Take a community of Dutchmen of the type of those who defended themselves for 50 years against all the power of Spain at a time when Spain was the greatest power in the world. Intermix with them a strain of those inflexible French Huguenots who gave up their name and left their country forever at the time of the revocation of the Edict of Nantes. The product must obviously be one of the most rugged, virile, unconquerable races ever seen upon the face of the earth. Take these formidable people and train them for 7 generations in constant warfare against savage men and ferocious beasts, in circumstances in which no weakling could survive. Place them so that they acquire skill with weapons and in horsemanship. Give them a country which is eminently suited for the tactics of the huntsman, the marksman, and the rider. Then finally put a fine temper upon their military qualities by a dour, fatalistic Old Testament religion and an ardent and consuming patriotism. Combine all of these qualities and all of these impulses in one individual, and you have the modern Boer, the most formidable antagonist who ever crossed the path of Imperial Britain. Our military history has largely consisted of our conflicts with France, but Napoleon and all his veterans have never treated us so roughly as these bard-bitten farmers with their ancient theology and their inconveniently modern rifles. Look at the map of South Africa, and there, in the very center of the British possessions, like the stone in a peach, lies the great stretch of the two republics, a mighty domain for so small a people. How came they there? Who are these Teutonic folk who have burrowed so deeply into Africa? It is a twice-told tale, and yet it must be told once again if this story is to have even the most superficial of introductions. No one can know or appreciate the Boer who does not know his past, for he is what his past has made him. This is who Afrikaners are. So if you're ever in a war, just draft those bitches. They'll fight for you, and they'll do it just for funsies. You don't even have to pay them. You just have to tell them, hey, I give you a gun, I give you bullets, go do stuff. They'll be like, oh, yeah, okay, let's go. You know, just expanding the Geneva checklist until hockey season starts. I think Afrikaners would integrate well into the US. I have a friend from Cape Town area who I like a lot, and he rocks an American flag and is proud to be here, but also still acknowledges his SA roots. Oh yeah, I'm waiting for Australia to start deporting the troublesome immigrants. Way too many people here that are a burden to society with the crime and violence they bring. Probably will happen. Did you watch Thomas Sowell talking about this stuff lately? Tekla, no. What did Thomas Sowell say? Yes, I'm coming to terms with the fact that this isn't round 2 of the same crap show. I am pleasantly neutral on things. Feels good. Wow. Epic. That's interesting. Because I remember you weren't quite that fond of Trump first term. George Orwell's shooting an elephant. I don't think I have, no. Why? What's it about? About his time as a colonial administrator. I have definitely not read it, no. Mixed up with someone else's name? I'll check it out anyways. You're talking about shooting an elephant. I'll read it, Caliph. He's winning me over. To be honest, I didn't think he would, but I like to think I give everyone a fair chance, and his second term is achieving things I wish I could say a Democrat did. Epic Thulu, welcome to the first steps of becoming a based conservative, sir. We are happy to welcome you back. There's some serious doubts about tariffs and about self-deportation being paid by the government. Says it makes a bad incentive. Basically, you can come to the US, work for 5 years, and get a free ticket back home. The thing is, where I think so, Thomas Sowell is what I refer to as an old school economist, right? The big problem with what Thomas Sowell, the mistake that Thomas Sowell makes is the same mistake that I made. Insofar as there's a bunch of right-wing economists that believe if you just let the market do what it does, it will lead to happiness and riches for everyone. But we've tried that for almost 40, 50 years. We've tried that where we say to businesses, just prioritize profits. Because if all businesses prioritize profits, surely what can go wrong? But we have found that it goes wrong very, very fast. And the reason for it is when profits is the only thing businesses care about, they very quickly figure out how to make those profits without giving any of it back. Right? So my problem with the old school way of looking at economics is the government has to play a role in at least providing a play area. So think of like a football field. The government's job is to draw the football field and then tell the businesses play. So we're not going to tell you how to play or what to play or whatever. You can play however you want, but these are the rules. This is the field. You have to be in this field if you want to play. The problem with people like Milton Friedman, the problem with people like Thomas Sowell is they don't want the field. They're like, no, get rid of the field. They'll just play. But when we allowed that to happen, what ended up happening is all of these businesses took all of their manufacturing out of America and just started selling to America. Right? So now you have what is called an extraction system. Because these companies aren't spending off that money back into the US. They take the money out of the US and then send it off to China in order to build the stuff there and pay the salaries for the people that build it there. So Americans are just being extracted while, all the money is being flown over to China. So their economics, the old school way of looking at economics like Thomas Sowell used to look at it, I think worked well pre-globalization. Now that you have globalization, you have to reimagine what economics needs to be. Is it still fine if some companies produce their goods elsewhere and just sells it in one country or another? Of course that is. But if every company does that, you have a problem. Because now who's actually working in America? Because, everyone else is making all of their stuff outside of America. So no one in America gets a job in order to make this stuff. There's no salaries being paid in America. So it's not something that you can just do. There needs to be a balance. There needs to be a careful balance. And I think that's where government can play a role, is in creating the balance. In deciding, okay, wait a second, guys, I'm perfectly happy with the stuff that you do, but I don't necessarily agree that you guys just make all of your stuff elsewhere. We have mines here. You can get aluminum here. Make your stuff from aluminum here, right? So I think that's where the government plays a decent role, is in trying to at least keep it fair for the population at home. Against tariffs, I watched these arguments against tariffs, Tekla. I've watched, because he's made a couple of videos against tariffs. I've watched all of them, and it's basically what I just explained to you. Because he believes in a free market, right? So he's very much like Milton Friedman in this way. They're very much libertarian in their free market approach. But as I've already explained, just think about this logically. Okay, think about this logically.
Damn. Thank you.
Matty B with the new membership. Really appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Think about this logically, okay? Let's use Apple, okay? Valius, how you doing, bro? Let's just use Apple here as an example. If Apple made all of their iPhones in America, what would happen is, for every $1,000 that Apple extracts out of America, because they're selling an iPhone, how much money would they be putting into America? Because remember, now the mines that produce the goods for the chips and the phones and everything is in America. They're operating. Those people get salaries that they can use to buy the iPhone. But also the factories that make the chips and stuff is in America. Those people can use that salaries and stuff to buy an iPhone. So what you have is a cyclical system. I'm extracting money from America, but I'm also giving money back because the production is in America as well. Or even just some of the production. It doesn't even have to be all of the production, but some of the production is in America. So I'm not extracting 100%. So even if we just said 60% of the production is in America, or 40% of production is in America, that still means that for every $1,000 that Apple removes out of the American economy, it is spending $400 back into the American economy. So it's technically only extracting $600 out of the American economy and sending that elsewhere. The current system, Apple takes 100% of their $1,000 out of the American economy and sends it over to China, where that 100% of it is spent in China to make more iPhones so that it can extract more thousands of dollars out of the American economy. So you end up with this sort of system where one country is only being extracted from and nothing is ever put back into it. So you can think in terms of farming. If you had a field of, say, 1 acre, right? And you started planting on that field, and every single season you plant something else. So you just keep planting. How long before that field is considered barren? Dependent on what you plant, it can be between 3 and 7 years. But you actually end up at a point where I've met farmers who have fields that are so barren that it's going to take 100 years for those fields to ever get back to normal. Like, even with artificial stuff, they farmed those fields to nothing. It's completely extracted. So they're doing sort of artificial stuff, removing a bunch of the soil and bringing in new soil in order to rejuvenate the fields, right? So that's sort of the stuff that you deal with if you just keep extracting and you never put anything back. That will happen to a country as well. If every country in the world or company in the world just extracts from America and sends that money off to somewhere else, how long can the American economy continue to survive before it crumbles in on itself? And this is, I think, what Trump is trying to correct. He's trying to say, hold on, guys, you can't take all of your money out of the country. Like, you have to spend some of it here. You have to employ some people here. It's all but extinct. But the middle class gets extinct because of this extraction model, right? It's not guaranteed, but there are no guarantees. Except for the fact that we already know that almost every large company in the world has already committed to moving a lot of their manufacturing to America. Right? So it's not guaranteed. It is desired. You're absolutely correct. But it looks, at least on the surface, as if the desired outcome is being achieved. And I guarantee you that Trump is going to be the same way he is with the tariff stuff. Once there's been enough of a commitment, he'll lay off. And he'll say, okay, guys, now I'm happy. You can do business now. It's all good, right? He's not going to keep going and keep pushing until they die. I don't think that's who he is. But I do think from Trump's perspective, they have to at least try to right the ship, right? US for decades. We are at the crisis point. If we don't course correct on the economy and start producing, we are done. Valius, I mean, there's one of two options. America either has to move to a system where the government taxes all of these corporations at 80% and then try and take that money and take care of the people of America, or you have to do something drastic, like tariffs, in order to try and force these companies to bring their business back. Because you are correct. If you look at the middle class in America, it's being eroded so fast that who's ultimately going to end up paying the taxes? Right? Who's ultimately going to end up making the country run? If you finally lose the whole of the middle class, where's the engine? The middle class is supposed to be the engine of an economy. But if you're losing that engine, what drives that economy, right? Tekla, so what he's referring to is a bit of a side problem, but it is still a problem that Trump has a very serious issue with. So the side problem that he's referring to is, if you look at tariffs, okay, and this is again where I feel Thomas Sowell is sort of missing the mark. America is the only country that never had tariffs on any other nation in the world, at least not for the last 50, 60 years. But every other nation in the world have tariffs on American goods. So American companies can't compete with European companies because the European Union has tariffs. So what Trump is doing now is Trump is saying, hold up, you can't do that. That's unfair. If you're going to have tariffs on us, we're going to have tariffs on you until you drop your tariffs, right? Because Trump isn't interested in killing Europe. He's not interested in BMW moving all of their manufacturing into America. That's not what Trump is after. But Trump does want Ford to have an opportunity to compete with BMW in Europe, right? Because it's not fair that, America can't compete. We don't want their food. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. If you don't want to buy their food, that's one thing. But you can't block their food, right? Because they don't block yours. If you see eggs from America and you go, well, I don't want that, you don't have to have that, right? You're perfectly fine to say, well, we don't want that. But at the same time, you can't say, well, we'll just block it. If the farmers in America realizes that no one is buying their food, then they'll stop shipping it to Europe. But then it's a natural process. The problem right now is that it is not natural, right? Yeah, but Tekla, you do know that Ford make a lot of cars that isn't 6-liter engines, right? You do know Ford has a shit ton of cars that's really tiny little hatchbacks and stuff. So Ford makes ridiculously large F-150s and stuff. There's quite a few here in South Africa of those. But Ford doesn't just make those, right? Would our libertarian free markets not self-select against it without the tariffs? Well, that's the hope, right? Fix your food first, it kills people. Tekla, I would just like to point out, I don't necessarily think that it's all American food that's killing people, right? Most of their normally grown vegetables and meat and stuff is perfectly fine, right? Very high quality meat. Nothing really wrong with it. The problem is more the mass-produced stuff, and you're already seeing that. RFK is already taking a beating to those companies, removing a bunch of really bad stuff from the food. So it's already happening, right? And there's nothing wrong, because this is actually a good thing for Americans. If Europeans really want to do a good thing for Americans, you would drop your tariffs. Because no one said that the European Union must suddenly allow all of that bullshit in their foods. The European Union can absolutely tell Hershey's, you guys are welcome to sell your chocolates in the European Union, but the following ingredients isn't allowed. That would force Hershey's to stop making, putting all of that bullshit ingredients in their chocolate. Both nations benefit, right? So fundamentally, I don't think there's any argument that anyone can make for why the tariffs in Europe is a good thing. If you want to make the argument that Europe should absolutely keep their tariffs, then America should absolutely keep theirs as well, right? Because then it's fair. Fair for fair. Where food doesn't meet health standards, such as not being oversaturated with sugars and fat that could cause our own food quality to improve. Epic, are you asking? I mean, I'm not suggesting that the European Union should lower their specifications. Just that they shouldn't block American goods from coming into the European Union, right? But they can absolutely tell a food company, look, these goods are not allowed to be sold here, so you're going to have to change the recipe if you want to sell here. That's perfectly fine. Actual free and fair trade is what Trump is pushing for. Oh, yeah. And just about every other government they had. I think, personally, if all the world's governments work with Trump, the world will probably be better for it in the long run. And you're seeing it, right? You're already seeing it. Keir Starmer, his language is shifting. He's starting to speak like Trump about immigration, about bringing manufacturing back to the UK. He's starting to speak like Trump. I was even surprised about Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, because he's starting to talk like Trump as well about border security and immigration and bringing manufacturing back to Canada. Like all of they don't want to admit it, but all of them are looking at this and going, "Wait, I think this is good ideas." I think you touched on what I was wondering on. If this could cause food produced in America to improve in quality to meet the higher standards of other countries voluntarily, yeah, that would be great, right? For everyone. Trump old baby, we are starting to improve our food quality with RFK. Yeah, RFK is improving the food quality. Like, dude, it can only be W's for everyone around if everyone in the world starts to work towards our country first. Right, but not our country alone. We're not trying to exclude the rest of the world, but we do have to look at what does our country need in order to be taken care of, in order to be safe, in order to be secured, in order to be able to help itself in dark situations, right? Of American food is the pharmaceutical companies. Oh yeah, the pharmaceutical companies are going to be one hell of a nut to crack. I don't know. Trump has now gone after the big boys. You know, he's gone after the big boys, and when you go after the big boys, bad stuff can happen. The pharmaceutical company is not going to let go of their absolute hold over America easily. Because it is true. In America, it's basically a case of the food industry makes them sick, we treat them, right? And the sicker we can make them, the more we can treat them. So it's going to be one hell of a... It's going to be one hell of a show to actually see them fix that. I have no idea. Oh, Valius, I absolutely agree with you. I don't think it's just the Democrats, to be very clear, Matty. You see, the problem is it's the Uni-Party. It's the Uni-Party. There are Republicans, dude. No one seems to ask this question, except for me, I guess. But the Republicans currently control the House and the Senate. Why is nothing happening? Technically, we should be seeing laws passed and bills passed every single day. I mean, they don't even need the Democrats. The Republicans own so much of the House and the Senate, they don't need the Democrats for shit. They can literally do whatever they want. And yet, nothing happens. Oh yeah, but Matty B, I mean, for most things, they don't need 2/3 majority. They literally need 50+1, right? And so I don't understand why everything is sort of just slowly... what is going to happen here, and this is my biggest fear, the Republicans are going to do what they did in 2016, because back in 2016, Trump also gave the Republican Party the House and the Senate and the White House. And what ended up happening is the Republicans ended up doing nothing for 2 years. They got voted out in the midterm elections. And what happened? Impeachment proceeding after impeachment proceeding after the Democrats literally stalled the government for 2 whole years, where Trump couldn't do shit because the Democrats were just blocking everything, right? Just making sure that Trump can't do anything. Yeah, you have SCOTUS apparently too, and yet nothing happens, and you're just like, dude, what the hell is going on here? Like, this just seems nuts. So the big problem is, in my opinion, the Uniparty. The Americans need to vote for new, young senators and congressmen who aren't part of that Uniparty thing, man. Who wants to get stuff done, who wants to change America. And I don't even care whether that's Republican or Democrat, does not matter to me. But young people or younger people who actually want to get stuff done, who doesn't just want to, go to this party or that party and, don't want to be disinvited from this dinner thing here. It's like, come on, man. Like, let's get stuff done. Although maybe it just takes time, because the one thing that we should acknowledge is the American system was built in such a way that things are very slow to happen, right? That's the whole point of it. The whole point of it is that the democratic or the system is supposed to be super slow. So maybe in the next few months we start seeing bull after bull after bull after bull, just super bulls everywhere. I don't know. We'll see. Wait, what just happened? Wait, what? Wait, this is wild. Things are different this time around. You can't threaten Trump's life anymore and expect the intelligence agencies to look the other way. James Comey tried, and Tulsi Gabbard isn't letting it slide. She says he knew exactly what he was doing. Then she made a vow that could mark the beginning of a new era of accountability.
Didn't know what 86 Trump meant?
Absolutely not, Jesse. That is a ridiculous and insane statement to make, certainly within this context, but especially coming from a guy who's the former director of the FBI, a guy who spent most of his career prosecuting mobsters and gangsters, people who know and execute other humans and use this exact lingo of 86. Comey himself admitted in his follow-on message that he knew that this was a political statement. Well, the only reason he knew that, Jesse, was because a little over a month ago, a bunch of anti-Trump, anti-Elon Musk protesters were proliferating the use of this 8647 slogan, which was a veiled call to action to murder the sitting president of the United States. So for Comey to think...
Isn't that, highly illegal?
That we, the American people, are so stupid as to think that he, as a former FBI director, former prosecutor, and someone who clearly pays attention to what's going on, would believe his lie that he didn't know what this actually was calling for. The dangerousness of this, Jesse, cannot be underestimated. When we have 2 assassination attempts on the president's life, when we have people who look to guys like Comey, who've been celebrated by MSNBC and the Democrat elite and CNN as...
Dude, if this guy gets arrested, that would be the most amazing thing ever.
The beacon of integrity, the law and order guy, the guy who would tell the truth no matter what the consequences. This is the guy who's issuing a hit on President Trump, the president that the American people voted for. So it's guys like Comey and others who call the president the modern day Nazi, people who are in great positions of influence, who are saying that President Trump poses an existential threat to our country. These are people who hate democracy and hate the American people because they cannot stand that the people overwhelmingly chose to elect Donald Trump and send him back to the White House.
Dude, mark my words, this lady is going to be the future president of the United States of America.
Administration taking this? How serious is the administration taking this? And what are the next steps going to be?
We're taking this very seriously. As you mentioned, the Department of Homeland Security, and specifically Sean Curran, the current Secret Service director, a man who has been willing to lay down his life as the lead of President Trump's Secret Service detail for years now. He takes this seriously and is leading the investigation into this threat. There has to be accountability for this. There was a Rutgers study that just came out a little over a month ago, Jesse, that asked respondents their view on these calls to assassinate President Trump. And over 55% of respondents felt that murdering President Trump would be, quote unquote, somewhat justified. This is the effect of people like James Comey doing this kind of stuff. This study also pointed out that there is a quote unquote assassination culture that is starting to take over the views of what they call the extreme left. We, the American people, cannot take this lightly. Whatever your politics, we cannot allow people to get by without being held accountable for this kind of public call to assassinate the President of the United States.
That's wild, dude. When the left is truly unhinged, man.
Do you believe that Comey is goading you guys to come after him because he wants to be a political martyr? He wants to be set up so he can say, oh, look, we were right. Donald Trump is a dictator. They're coming after me. They're arresting me. They're interrogating me. I was just using my free speech.
You know, whatever his intent, I will tell you that there is a guy in Georgia who is issuing threats on my life about a month ago, and he's in jail today. He has been indicted with a crime, as he should have been, and he is in jail as we speak. So whatever James Comey intent, he and people like him need to be held to account. According.
And anyone that's screaming, oh, but free speech, issuing death threats is not free speech. You don't get to claim when you write something like 8647. That's issuing a death threat, right? That's calling for assassination. That's not free speech. You can't be like, oh, but I was just speaking freely. That is a threat.
According to the law, which is something that he claims to have given his life for and stands by the rule of law. Fantastic. The rule of law says people like him who issue direct threats against the President of the United States, essentially issuing a call to assassinate him, must be held accountable under the law.
Dude.
Jail.
I do. Any other person with the position of influence that he has, people who take very seriously what a guy of his stature, his experience, and what the propaganda media has built him up to be, I'm very concerned for the president's life. We've already seen assassination attempts. I'm very concerned for his life. And James Comey, in my view, should be held accountable and put behind bars for this.
Do you believe Comey should be in jail?
I agree.
I do.
I agree. I think the man should be in jail. Not only just calling for assassination, but someone with his reach and access to intelligence, a public high profile, that's more than just a veiled threat. Yeah. And I genuinely think if you're going to make threats against the president of the United States, you're also starting to run into you have to make an example of that person, right? Like, you have to send a clear message that this kind of stuff will not be tolerated. And it won't be tolerated against a left-wing politician either. If there was some conservative that were suddenly saying, let's 86 Pelosi, I would argue the exact same way. There are ways in a civilized society for you to get rid of people that you don't like. It's called the ballot box. If you lose at the ballot box, you accept the loss, you move on, and you try next time. You don't then just get rid of the problem. That's not how, because once there's this great saying, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. If we start saying that it is okay to assassinate political leaders that we don't agree with, where does it end? Because as soon as the left assassinates President Trump, what happens when the Republicans decide, well, since this is now, legal, let's go after the next Democratic president? Then the left responds. So before you know it, we're killing politicians left, right, and center, because once you open that door, it's oftentimes very difficult to close it again, right? It's not just going to go shut by itself. So I'm definitely not involved in any of this. If they kill Trump, it would be open civil war. I wonder if that's not true. The Roman Republic fell to empire with like 100 years of political assassinations. Well, yeah, because once you reach that point, there's no coming back from it, right? Because now it becomes a legitimate political tool to just get rid of your opponents. Just kill them. It's fine. But all right, boys, that's the end of the stream. I still haven't even eaten yet, so I do need to go make some food. And we're already almost 4 hours into this. I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out and spending some time with me. I hope you had fun doing so. With this optimistic accent. Later, Echo. Later, chat. Pleasure as always. No, I really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me and spending time with me. I hope you had fun. I'll be back on Monday on Twitch. So if you're looking forward to more streams, I'll definitely be back on Monday. I might be live tomorrow on Twitch for a little bit, playing some Doom. Some Doom. What's the game called now, man? Dark Ages, maybe. Depends on how my day works and how much time I have. But I will try to be live for a bit to hang out with you guys. But as always, thank you so much to each and every one of you for coming out, for hanging out. And Valius, yeah, please let me know, guys, if you want to see more South African videos. I'd be happy to do more videos about South Africa and the sort of situation in South Africa, if that is something that people are interested in. Otherwise, we just stick with the gaming stuff and have fun with that. As always, ladies and gentlemen, be good to each other. Be kind to each other. And I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.